Chapter 981 Garp is furious. The invincible genre. Humph. Andre snorted disdainfully. He didn't care whether the opponent was the Shira style or the Devil style. He only knew strength, speed, physique, skills, and fighting talent, so the so-called invincible old man with glasses bald swordsmanship is just a gimmick. Fold Yawu, who is also the Peak, also expressed curiosity at this time. He was born in the Fold family. The men in the whole family are master swordsmen, and in order to defeat Andre, he has never studied and learned about kendo. Slack off. At this time, the sword intent displayed by the bald old man with glasses made him curious. Come on, let me see this legendary sword skill. The bald old man with glasses suddenly took a big step forward with his right foot. At this time, his body leaned forward. Shira Lu, Ghost Sakura. With a loud shout, the first-generation Goosh swung forward in a strange arc, and the dark red sword body suddenly burst into a scarlet sword glow. The sword glow seemed to be hiding an evil spirit, and when the air was torn apart, the evil spirit howled loudly. Suddenly, the sword lights spread out like cherry blossoms, and the currency area is like Muyu under the rain of cherry blossoms. Fake a ghost. Fold Yawu's eyes were awe-inspiring, and he swung his sword with one hand, and at the same time he exuded a fierce sword intent. Cut the spring in autumn. The famous sword in his hand showed a blinding bright light, and thousands of sword chi scattered, impacting the cherry blossoms. Ding ding ding. The petals of the cherry blossoms scattered, and the collision of sword chi produced a sound like the collision of gold and iron. Gorgeous yet powerful, it is breathtaking. Why is this fellow Yawu so familiar with his sword skills? Mahak pondered attentively. Shiryu of the Rain nodded. I feel familiar too. I think so too, Harold muttered. This guy Yawu actually imitated me, but he didn't understand the profound meaning of collapse Jin, so this nondescript swordsmanship, on the contrary, is not an anti-dog like a tiger. Andre chuckled lightly, and when he opened his mouth, the three of Harold were stunned for a moment, then reacted. Indeed, the sword chi that Fold Yawu had just chopped out was similar to the splitting of collapsed energy, but they did not have the characteristics of collapsed energy, so they seemed nondescript. Swords come in swords, every move is forced to their respective key points, a little carelessness will lead to death. This level of duel between swordsmen is eye-opening for Zoro. He is like a hungry, thirsty sapling, constantly absorbing the true meaning of swords. Fold Yawu still surpassed the bald old man with glasses in terms of strength. After all, both observation hockey and armament hockey are in a fierce confrontation, consuming each other's physical strength and energy. Although the bald old man with glasses used the first-generation Gito and the so-called Shira style to make up for the difference in strength between him and Yawu, the gap is the gap. Even if he has the supremely fast sword in his hand and masters the lost Shira-style swordsmanship, but facing Yawu, whose speed, strength, and reaction are all superior to him, the bald old man with glasses is gradually showing signs of weakness. And the old guy is getting old, and the muscles in his body are atrophied. It is very rare to be able to compete with Yawu for so long. Admit defeat. Fold Yawu slashed with double swords, forcing the bald old man with glasses to keep retreating, but he had no plans to kill Gorosei, 5 elders, because he was different from Andre. What he wanted was supreme right, so Gorosei, 5 elders' talent was a nice addition to him when he came to power, and it would be a shame to kill. Ernst Street has never really convinced us, let alone you. The bald old man with glasses snorted disdainfully, and then took a strange footwork with his feet again and again. At the same time, he waved the first-generation ghost with his left and right hands. With his footwork and strange trajectory, he regained the advantage in a short period of time, forcing Yawu to reopen the distance and adjust his attack rhythm. I can't see it, this old guy is really good. Andre held his cheek with one hand. From his angle and position, the battle at sea at this time was undoubtedly like a beast fight, fierce, bloody, and exciting. Boss, when will we take action? Harold was already eager to see the battle between Yawu and the old guy. After all, a duel between swordsmen of this level is hard to come by. Andre asked suddenly, Do you want to go down and play too? Mahawk asked in surprise. Boss, don't you plan to join the war? Kula-la-la. At this time, Whitebeard laughed. Andre's idea is to let young people take this opportunity to hone their skills. Practice. Hone in. So, are we just here for the show? Harold and the others were speechless for a while. They really wanted to experience the legendary invincible sword skills. Okay, shut up, there's nothing to be noisy about. Andre waved his hand impatiently, then turned his gaze to Garp. At this time, Garp was really fierce, and the bear had no backhand in front of him. If it wasn't for the bear's height and stature, and the meatball fruit, the bear would have been defeated by Garp within a few minutes. Garp sent the bear flying with an iron fist, then turned around and roared at Dragon, "Stinky boy, come here." Dragon's body trembled, but he didn't look back, instead focusing on attacking the pudgy old man with the mustache in Gorosei, 5 elders. Disobedient guy. A flash of worry flashed in Garp's eyes, although he had not fought the Gorosei, 5 elders, but 5 old guys can stand at the top of the world government for so many years, will it be bad? Although Dragon is already in his prime, can he handle the Gorosei, 5 elders? Ah! A scream rang out from his ear. Garp turned his head subconsciously and saw Sengoku fell to the ground, vomiting blood, and it was Luffy who knocked Sengoku to the ground. At this time, Luffy had already entered the state of 4th gear, and he had just hit the rubber monkey king fist, which severely damaged Sengoku. The years are ruthless, and Sengoku is getting old. Whitebeard sighed. He and Sengoku, Garp, Sora and others are also old friends, and they all know each other's strength. If Sengoku is 20 years younger, it can definitely stop him. Got Luffy's blow. But Garp didn't have Whitebeard's leisure to sigh that his youth would never return. He was really angry at this time. His son and grandson were more rebellious than each other. At this moment, grandson seriously injured his best friend for many years. Armed. Furious, Garp gathers armament Haki, then dashes towards Luffy. Grandpa. Luffy was stunned. Bang. Punch slammed into Luffy's stomach, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of Luffy's mouth, spilling onto Garp's face. Enough is enough, you bastard. Chapter 982 The Dream of One Piece, King of Pirates should wake up. Garp threw out this punch with anger, a kind of anger that hates iron and steel, and the pain of guilt for his lifelong comrades. If I hadn't indulged you all the time and restrained you a little, you wouldn't be like this today. It's all my fault. Garp clenched his fist, clenched his gums, and shuddered, and the grief pouring out of his body gradually infected others. Conqueror Haki. Garp's Haki is very unique, different from Andre's brutality, Full-Yawu's ruthless, Lucas's madness, or other people's domineering. Under the influence of this Haki, those present seemed to feel a faint sadness. Garp is getting old too. He wasn't like that when he was young. Whitebeard had known Garp for decades and was the most vocal person in the audience present. Heroes are twilight, father and son cannibalize each other, grandfather and grandson can hurt each other, and human relations are tragic. Andre shook his head secretly. He felt some sympathy for Garp. Although his children and grandchildren had their own blessings, Garp's hero finally had to do something to his own grandson. Who could understand this kind of pain? Cough. Cough cough. Luffy coughed and stood up at this time. His hand was covering his mouth. Garp's punch just now had hurt his internal organs, and now the internal organs are damaged, causing intra-abdominal bleeding. Grandpa, I won't back down. Luffy clenched his fists, moved his feet to the left and right, and jumped back into position. Yeah, Garp just snorted in a nasal voice, accepting Luffy's realization. I'm here, this time I'm going to prove my consciousness with my fists. Luffy roared, his feet jumped high, and the whole person jumped into the sky. Rubber. Luffy's arm became huge with his bare hands, and in the fourth block, Luffy was ready to use the rubber thunder god gun again. Instead of stopping Luffy's charge, Garp didn't move, as if waiting for Luffy. At this time, Luffy's rubber arm had swelled to a length of several hundred meters, and the thick arm was diving directly into the clouds. Armed. Click, click. Lightning wrapped around Luffy's arm, creating electrical sparks. Rubber Thor. Luffy waved his arm and slammed into Garp's boat. If this blow hits, the ship that Garp and the Gorosei, 5 elders and others are riding in will surely sink into the sea. But then Garp suddenly jumped up, with determination in his eyes. Go to impel down and reflect. Ah! Garp's aura lifted, and armament hockey wrapped his body. Suddenly, the rubber thunder god gun fell, and Garp's fist also greeted it. Despite his tall and burly stature, Garp looks a little small under Luffy's giant arm. However, the power on Garp's fist was terrifyingly amazing. The former Garp used the mountains as sandbags to cast iron fists. The moment the fists collided, the colliding cyclone exploded. The sea was hit by the violent air waves, and the water column was startled, which was extremely spectacular. And after such a shocking blow, Garp fell down from the air. Sengoku didn't care about his injury and jumped up immediately to catch Garp. A puff, Garp vomited out a mouthful of blood, then fell on top of Sengoku, coughing non-stop. I am still old, I can't use my full power, I'm sorry, Sengoku. Garp raised his tired face and said apologetically to Sengoku. You've tried your best, Sengoku said, shaking his head. Garp is still holding on, Andre said coldly. Whitebeard sighed softly. Well, it was impossible to give Straw Hat a chance to charge up just now, and the moment he punched, he withdrew his strength again. Keep your hands, Carlos and the others asked in astonishment. Garp just had a chance to beat Luffy with a punch, but he still didn't have the heart to shoot at his children and grandchildren. This old guy is cold on the surface, Redfield said with emotion. He has a deep understanding of how strong Garp is. It's not difficult to beat Luffy. Garp poured water on Luffy, but Luffy didn't realize it. Although he felt guilty for hurting Grandpa, he couldn't stop there because his fight had not stopped. Garp, you really let us down. The Gorosei, 5 elders had just witnessed the entire engagement, and understood that Garp was hurt on purpose to give Luffy water. Luffy adjusted his state as he became angry, and then glared at Gorosei, 5 elders. Defeat you, and defeat Andre, and this will end this troubled world. Innocent brat. The blonde old man in Gorosei, 5 elders stood up. He quickly took off his suit, and then rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, revealing 2 sturdy arms. He clenched his fist, and suddenly made a gurgling sound, and his neck clucked. With a move, the bones rattled. Fighting technique. Andre stared at the blonde old man with interest. At this time, the blonde old man didn't move, but simply hooked his finger at Luffy. Come on, you will understand how small you are. I will knock you down. Luffy stepped on his right foot and rushed forward. At this time, he had released the state of 4th gear and changed to 2nd gear to fight. The deck wasn't very long, so Luffy approached the blonde man in a blink of an eye. Rubber jet pistol. Luffy punched the blonde old man in the cheek. But the moment he punched, the blonde old man disappeared, and then he punched Luffy's stomach, where his stomach was, so after the punch hit, Luffy vomited his lunch. Came out. Cough cough cough. Luffy's eyes bulged out, and he kept coughing. Garp is stupid. If I were him, I'd knock you out in the impel down instead of letting you die when you're out of shape. After the blonde old man finished speaking, he kicked Luffy's body, which directly hit Luffy's spleen. Bang! Like a ball, Luffy rolled on the deck for nearly 100 meters. Before he could stop, the blonde old man had already taken the lead, chasing Luffy with a shaver and stomping him on the ground. Little devil, it's time to wake up from the dream of One Piece, King of Pirates. Smash Luffy's chest with 1 foot. He saw Ace rushing over. You are not allowed to hurt Luffy. The raging flames burned on Ace, and the Conqueror hockey slammed into the crowd. Roger's son. Roger's remnants should also be sent to the gallows. Chapter 983 Entei Field. As soon as Ace appeared, Rayleigh and Gabon also arrived. It seems that Roger's remnants are still quite a few, and it's time to eradicate them today. The blonde old man moved his muscles, and he didn't seem to feel too much pressure for Ace, Rayleigh and Gabon. After all, Ace is young, and both Rayleigh and Gabon are old. I haven't dealt with anyone for many years, and I don't mind cutting you first today. Gabon walked up to Ace at this time. His right hand was already on the handle of the knife. But before Gabon could draw his knife, Ace had already reached out, shot and stopped him. Uncle Gabon, can this person be handed over to me? Gabon was silent for a moment, then turned his eyes to Rayleigh, roughly asking for the latter's opinion. Rayleigh nodded silently to Gabon, clearly agreeing with Ace's approach. Well, be careful. Gabon patted Ace on the shoulder, then stepped aside. At this time, Buggy and Shanks also pulled the boat over. Mr. Rayleigh. Mr. Gabon. As Roger's interns, although Shanks and Buggy have dominated the New World, they still respect their predecessors, and at the same time, they are also quite caring for Roger's posthumous son Ace. Therefore, Shanks and Buggy decisively gave up Charlotte Linlin and chose to stand behind Ace. A bunch of remnants. The blonde old man's face was a little unnatural at this time. After all, the pressure on the four emperors, red-haired Shanks, and the king of clowns, Buggy, was multiplied. This is really bad. Kizaru stroked his forehead with one hand, his expression extremely ugly. Of course, no matter how dangerous the situation, he still had a chance to escape. At this time, Ace had already launched an attack. He rushed straight to the blonde old man, and kicked the latter's neck with a sharp side whip. However, what the blonde old man is best at is the fighting technique, so he doesn't even care about Ace's half-handed fighting technique attack. It's just that the blonde old man quickly realized that he underestimated Ace. Because Ace's legs turned into flames, directly elementalized, and the seemingly powerful kick was actually just a feint move. The real killer move was Ace's next rollover and hanging kick. The power of this kick is quite strong, and the speed is very fast, making the blonde old man have to take it hastily. Bang! With a muffled sound, the blonde old man's mouth was kicked firmly. Then, before the blonde old man slapped the spark in Shang's mouth, Ace seemed to repeat the same trick, and it was another series of kicks. This time the blonde old man was wary, so he guarded carefully, but unexpectedly, Ace's hand made a pistol-like, continuous musket fire. The flames directly burned the blonde old man's hair. After slapping the flames off his hair, the blonde old man was very angry. Little devil, how dare you play with me? Ace hooked his hands in disapproval, and said contemptuously, this is just a little interest. I will repay everything you did to Luffy and the old man tenfold. Who do you think you are, Andre? The blonde old man was serious this time, only to see that he was covered in armament hockey, and then launched a stormy attack. The speed of the punches is very fast, the punches are fierce, and the punches are all attacking Ace's key points. Ace has learned a lot from Andre's guidance, so he can play the blonde old man. Now that the blonde old man is serious, he doesn't leave any flaws for him at all, so the trick is no longer effective, and he can only overcome the enemy with force. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, Ace didn't take a step back, and responded to the blonde old man with astonishing fist speed. Fist to fist, the difference is that Ace's fist is not only covered with armament hockey, but also burning with hot flames. The sparks collided, and the punches from the two shocked each other. Whitebeard watched intently for a long time before asking Andre, have you taught Ace lately? Andre didn't deny it either. Originally I went to teach Kid, but seeing that Ace didn't know how to use his powers, he let him watch by the way. Well, he's grown a lot. Whitebeard nodded. Without waiting for Andre to speak again, Ace used a series of fire fists to continuously consume the oxygen in the air through the continuous burning flame, and at the same time the height temperature. The people who were close to Ace felt the heat unbearably, and their bodies were soaked with sweat. Rayleigh, Gabon and others are no exception, and the injured Sengoku and Garp are even worse. Entei Field. Ace glared angrily, the flames on his body burned more and more vigorously, as hot as a small sun, and the surrounding seawater quickly evaporated under the high temperature, turning into rising water vapor. Yo, this kid is enlightened. Liu Yu narrowed his eyes. Although he had no say in swordsmanship and fighting techniques, he was definitely a master in the development of devil fruits, so he saw Ace using burning fruits. He was shocked too. Using flames to consume oxygen in the air and raise the surrounding temperature at the same time, although it cannot effectively kill the opponent, but it increases the opponent's load invisibly. That old guy is also unlucky. Also a master-level Logia devil fruit user. Comrade Crocodile's moves have the same effect, but his rustling fruit is of poor grade and depends too much on the environment, so the effect is not as good as burning the fruit. Spiritual skills. Ace's strength has caught up with Kid, this is the talent gap. Andre let out a long sigh. Although Kid is diligent, when a diligent mortal meets a diligent genius, the gap will only be enlarged infinitely, just like a scholar and a scholar. A scholar is working hard, but he cannot surpass the scholar. In this regard, Andre has nothing to do. After all, his own talent overwhelms everyone. Even Lucas and Yawu, who are both peaks and have the same talent, are slightly inferior, and the gap in talent is doomed to him. Can suppress the life of two people. The blonde old man also realized that it was not good. He knew very well that if he continued to fight like this, his body fluid would be lost in a large amount, and he would soon be in a state of dehydration. Must defeat Ace as soon as possible. The blonde old man gritted his teeth, then slammed angrily, punching Ace in the cheek. However, Ace was not in a hurry to hit hard. He stepped back to avoid it. At the same time, Observation Hockey heard the blonde old man's next attack, so a kick kicked the blonde old man's left knee first, forcing the blonde hair. The old man had to suspend the offensive. Chapter 984 Broken Ace. The blonde old man's complexion changed drastically. Originally, he thought that Ace was only good at using fruit power. If this is the case, then as long as he uses exquisite fighting techniques and deep hockey cultivation, he can defeat Ace. But Ace just Observation Hockey prejudged in advance, and in front of him came a clever break, interrupting his offensive. This proves that Ace's physical skills are proficient, especially the application in actual combat, and it has reached a very high level. Otherwise, it is impossible to make such a flexible and accurate response in a hasty situation. Outsiders watch the fun, insiders watch the doorway. The masters present are basically proficient in physical skills, so Ace just kicked his legs, which opened their eyes. Little devil, I will break your neck. At this time, the blonde old man's eyes were red. He wanted to make a quick decision and solve these Roger's remnants by himself. He never thought that he would waste so much time on Ace, and he was still at a disadvantage. The embodiment of this mood, in other words, is the mood of the Diamond King being pressed to the second tower by the going rank. Old guy, I will burn you to ashes, and then pour it into this sea to feed the fish. Ace retorted. Now he is more and more confident. He seems to have figured out the trick, how to use, correctly, way to fight. Especially the knowledge that Andre taught before, he has now completely absorbed it. Death. The blonde old man clenched his left hand into a fist, his right hand formed a claw, his steel claws cracked the wind, his iron fist shattered into the air, coupled with the high-speed displacement of the shaved, he was like a ghost at this time, and he wanted to see if Ace could adapt to this speed. Ace's pressure has increased greatly. Although his Observation Hockey is very strong, there is still a gap in strength between him and the blonde old man, so his reaction can't keep up with the blonde old man's speed. RIP_. There was a sound of cloth shattering, and the blonde old man tore Ace's shoulder with a claw, leaving 3 deep claw marks. Tick tick. The blood flowed down the deck along the claw marks, and was quickly scorched by Ace's own flame. Although Ace wanted to take the initiative to elementalize and avoid this claw attack, but his reaction speed was still slow. The blonde old man hit with a claw, and he intensified his attack even more. Pillar of Flame. Ace's whole body burst into a blazing fire. The fire soared into the sky, and at the same time his body rushed into the sky, bombing. Hundreds of basketball-sized fireballs hit the blonde old man. Little devil, this doesn't work for me. At this moment, the blonde old man covered armament hockey all over, so he went straight on, and with the flames on his body, he used Moonstep to forcibly jump into the sky and attack Ace. But Ace just suddenly bent down and rushed down at this time, raising his hand to aim. Musket. The musket was aimed at the eyes of the blonde old man, and armament hockey was wrapped around the flame, which had extremely strong penetrating power. As we all know, the eyes are the most vulnerable part of the human body. Therefore, the blonde old man had to raise his left arm to block his eyes. At this time, Ace's right arm had finished charging, and a huge flame fist fell into the sky. Wrapped in armament hockey slammed on the blonde old man's body. Boom! Boom! After a loud bang, the blonde old man was slammed into the deck. If the deck of this battleship was not made of sea stone, the fire fist would directly smash the blonde old man into the sea. Fire fist boom. However, before the blonde old man got up, Ace punched again. With a speed like a cannon, the power of fire fist is constantly vented. Intensive blows continued to fall on the blonde old man. Bang bang bang. Fist to the flesh of the blow, armament hockey collided with each other. Puff. The blonde old man actually vomited blood. While you are sick, I will kill you. Ace fell straight down, put away his legs, and knelt fiercely at the blonde old man's mouth with his knees. However, the blonde old man's strength is not bad. Although he vomited blood, he still forced his right hand to pat the bottom of the boat. At the same time, he rolled his body to the left several times, avoiding Ace's fatal attack. However, Ace was not stupid. He missed a move, and immediately flipped on the spot, jumped up, and kicked the blonde old man's crotch with his pussy legs while he was adjusting. The blonde old man subconsciously pressed down his hands to block the blow and lift his pubic legs. However, Ace's hands also seized the opportunity and grabbed the blonde old man's wrists. The blonde old man was about to struggle hard when Ace's head suddenly slammed into the blonde old man's nose. This collision was incredible, and the nosebleed of the blonde old man was so bad. And even if it hits, Ace's head is covered with armament hockey, and he hits it 7 times in a row. The blonde old man's eye bags and nose were severely damaged. Damn, I'm going to kill you. The angry blonde old man raised his claws and wanted to tear Ace apart, but Ace suddenly raised his knees and pressed it against the blonde old man's crotch. This blow was a solid hit to the egg. The masters who are watching the battle feel pain when they see it. That's what Andre taught Ace. In this situation, Rayleigh and Gabon were stunned. Although he doesn't want to recall, Rayleigh and Andre have played against each other twice, and both times they were yin by Andre. Of course, soldiers never tire of deceit. As long as a white cat or a black cat can catch mice, it is a good cat. Although Andre is yin, a move that can win is a good move. And Ace from the beginning, so far, his use of moves and fighting style have Andre's shadow, even just burning hair, is deliberately angering the opponent. Besides Andre, who else can teach Ace to be such an upright person as Whitebeard? Hee hee. Gabon smiled wryly. Although there are not a few pirates who use insidious tricks such as locking their eyes, locking their throats and swaying their yin in battle, the strong must always have a strong demeanor, right? Only a shameless guy like Andre would train Ace like this. Even if Andre can force it to be a combination of virtual and real technique. Andre, how did you teach that to Ace? Whitebeard sank. It's not me. Andre was speechless. He really didn't teach Ace these bad tricks. Of course, Andre is innocent. Who made Ace talented? After witnessing little Lolita's fighting style, he was enlightened, and he learned all the tricks without a teacher. Chapter 985 Mysterious Gorose, 5 Elders. A hero who wins or loses, Ace doesn't care how dirty his moves are, because he knows very well that the blonde old man in front of him is definitely a master of fighting technique. Coupled with the advanced hockey, the ghostly speed is almost impossible to beat. Therefore, only by using some brains and using some small tricks can we achieve an unexpected victory. And obviously, Ace succeeded. His successful leapfrog challenge beat the blonde old man into half-disabled. At least the blonde old man was hit hard, and it seemed reluctant to fight again. Slick brat, let me be your opponent. Seeing that the old man was humiliated, the old man with a flat hat and a scar on the left side of his face stood up. The old man had already understood Ace's strength and also knew his sinister moves, so he was prepared. It's the same for anyone who comes. Ace snorted coldly. Although he despised his opponent, his mouth was heaving and sweat dripping from his forehead, proving that his physical strength was also heavy. Little devils love to be brave. The old man with the flat hat shook his head, then put his hands together and closed his eyes. This posture is somewhat similar to the ancient yoga of India, which seems to be the unity of Brahman and self. It is also similar to some kind of Qigong technique. What is this old guy doing? Ace was stunned. He had never seen such an opponent, such a strange posture. Gabon, have you ever seen such a posture? Rayleigh lowered his face. He couldn't hear the old man's movements, not even the old man's heartbeat and breathing. Gabon said with a solemn expression, it's like a stone at the bottom of an ancient pond. Stop acting like a ghost, old man. Ace roared. The flames on his body spewed out again. The raging flames burned the whole ship, and the surrounding temperature increased again. The people on the boat were already struggling to breathe, and Sengoku had to take Garp into a lifeboat. Om mani mani hum, man mani hum. At this time, the old man's double chuns were lightly opened, and he was chanting incantations that were difficult for ordinary people to understand. As the incantation was recited, the flames around the old man began to move away from it and spread around, which was very strange. Dad, have you seen it? Andre turned to Whitebeard at this point. Whitebeard shook his head, then asked Redfield and Wald, how about you? Never seen. Me too. Redfield and Wald shook their heads. Have you never seen it before? There are quite a few secrets about these old guys. Andre frowned. He was far away and could only observe the battle with binoculars, so he couldn't detect the old man with the flat hat. Variety. However, judging from what the naked eye can see, the old man must have used some kind of airwave energy, otherwise the flames cannot be expelled. At this time, on the city wall, Robin fell into contemplation. She seemed to have thought of something, and her face became more and more ugly. Robin, what's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well? Nami next to Robin asked hurriedly. I'm going to the library. After Robin finished speaking, he turned around and ran down the city wall. Hello, Robin. Seeing this, Nami hurriedly caught up with Robin. Robin and Nami hurried to the city wall without attracting much attention. After all, everyone is now paying attention to the battle on the sea. Enjomo Blaze Net Flame Dragon. At the same time, Ace's hands released a large flame, which turned into a huge dragon head, and opened his mouth to swallow the old man with the flat hat into his stomach. However, the old man with the flat hat not only did not move, but also easily pushed Yanlong towards Ace. Does the flames have no effect on him? The old guy obviously didn't use hockey, and he didn't even move. Ace clenched his fists, and the old flat-hatted man in front of him gave him the feeling that he was invulnerable. Well, mani hum. At this moment, the hand of the old man with the flat hat began to wave slowly, like a statue of a god. As the hands of the flat-cap old man drew a circle in front of him, shock waves immediately rushed towards Ace. Boom, boom, boom. These shock waves are overwhelming, destroying everything wantonly. Ace raised his arms subconsciously, and armament hockey immediately covered his body. Bang! After a muffled sound, Ace was knocked out. Puff! Ace lay on the ground, a mouthful of blood spurting out. The power of this blow is so strong. Did Captain Ace get knocked down? The pirates of the 2nd Division were stunned, and they couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Ace! Ace! Rayleigh and Gabon rushed over immediately, the former to check Ace's injury, the latter to block in front of them with a knife. Damn old guy, I will never let you go. Ace pushed Rayleigh away and stood up coughing. But the old man with the flat hat still didn't open his eyes, like an old Zen monk praying to the Buddha. Is this guy really human? Never seen an attack like this. Carlos, Harold and others all looked solemn, and they finally understood why Gorose, 5 elders didn't take action easily, because the most terrifying thing about them was their sense of mystery. Go to hell. Ace rushed out at this time, ignoring Rayleigh's obstruction at all. The fist wrapped in flames almost wiped the face of the old man with the flat hat, but the seemingly inevitable blow was easily dodged. However, Ace's attack did not stop, and he continued to launch a fierce attack. He missed a punch and another flying knee, trying to hit the old man's mouth with a flat hat. However, the old man with the flat hat shoved his body backwards and easily escaped again. Not only that, but the mantra in his mouth continued to be silently recited, Wat Mani Hum. This incantation seems to have a strange magic power, and when it is introduced into Ace's ears, it makes his mood more and more irritable. Ah! Ace was also angry at this time. There was no more moves to speak of with his fists and feet, he just kept punching and kicking. It's just that the higher the frequency of Ace's attacks, the easier it is for the old man with the flat hat to dodge. Seeing that Ace had lost his mind, Rayleigh immediately reminded, Ace, pay attention to your breathing rate. But it was already too late, and I saw Ace's Shangbor in neutral position. The old man with the flat hat raised his hand naturally. Bang! A shock wave poured out from the palm of the hand, and it was firmly printed on Ace's body. Puff! Ace spurted blood again, and his body floated backwards like catkins. PFF'd. Ace fell heavily to the ground, vomiting blood. Chapter 986 Pluto Angry. Asshole! Gabon was so angry that he slashed at the old flat hat with his knife. Although Gabon is old, he is also Roger's left hand, and his strength is outstanding. At this time, a sharp slash approached, but the old man with the flat hat was reciting the incantation. It's just that the mantra was recited faster this time. Well Mani Hum. As the mantra came out, cyclones emanated from the old man with the flat hat, forming an invisible air cover. The slash slashed into the air, and intense friction immediately occurred, and a harsh cracking sound continued to be heard in the air. Ah! Gabon held the knife, his arms collided, and he pushed the knife forward. However, looking at his difficult appearance, it seemed that he was blocked by an invisible wall in front of him. Just as everyone held their breaths and watched the changes in the battle, the mutation regenerated. Suddenly, the air wall cover suddenly dissipated. Gabon couldn't react in time, and almost lost his focus in a staggering way. However, this flaw and mistake was firmly grasped by the old man with the flat hat. The old man with the flat hat waved his arms again, and his palms kept slapping forward. Every slap, there will be a terrifying palm pressure. Every palm press was firmly imprinted on Gabon's body. Bang, bang, bang. A dull blow sounded, and Gabon was flung like a kite with a broken string. At this time, the old man with the flat hat stood on tiptoe, and his body shot out like an arrow from the string, hitting Gabon's abdomen heavily. After all, Gabon followed Roger to fight in the north and south. Although his body was severely injured, he still did not forget to swing his sword. It's just that this slash was hastily and lacked strength, so his stance was also easily avoided by the old man with the flat hat. But the moment the old man with the flat hat avoided, Gabon stomped heavily on the ground, jumped high in the air, and slashed his knife wildly in the air. A knife is faster than a knife, and each knife carries a terrifying slash that is enough to open mountains and seas. In the case of another injury, still fight like this. The minions watching the battle were silent, no wonder Gabon was able to follow Roger to become a legend. Rayleigh took a look at Ace's injury. At this time, when he saw Gabon's fierce attack, he immediately realized that it was not good. Gabon, don't be impulsive. It's just that Gabon is already on his head, especially the incantations that the flat-cap old man keeps reading, which makes him emotionally out of control. Seeing that Gabon didn't listen at all, Rayleigh was anxious and didn't care about anything else, and saw him immediately draw his sword and chop off a slash. This slash directly hit the back of the old man with the flat hat. Slash from Hades. Although Rayleigh is old, his sword is still destructive. The old man with the flat hat felt the danger, so his body naturally floated back, avoiding Rayleigh's attack in time. PFF'd. Gabon vomited blood. At this time, he was leaning on the knife in one hand, his face was pale, and he was obviously seriously injured. Gabon, are you all right? Rayleigh hurriedly supported Gabon. Gabon shut his mouth tightly, but blood still overflowed from the corners of his mouth. Damn it. Rayleigh was an old man, and he tore Gabon's shirt off the first time. However, Gabon's mouth was black and purple, the congestion was extremely serious, and the attack just now aggravated the injury. The old man with the flat hat opened his eyes, and then pretended to take out a booklet from his arms. Your sins in this life will be settled today. I will never let you go. The silver-white hair on Rayleigh's head stood up, once again showing the world the wrath of Hades. With Rayleigh's conqueror Haki venting, the world is responding to his anger. Rayleigh, your conqueror Haki is great. Flat hat old man Vivi frowned and seemed to have a certain taboo against Rayleigh's conqueror Haki. Gabon, you rest for a while, I'll take revenge for you. Rayleigh placed Gabon firmly on the deck, and then drew his sword with one hand. Mr. Rayleigh, down with that old thing. Come on, Mr. Rayleigh. Go on, Pluto. The second division and the Straw Hats spoke up one after another to help Rayleigh. Well, the momentum is indeed very strong, but you are old. The flat-cap old man said this without blushing. At this time, his hands were folded again, but he put on a strange standing posture of independence of the golden rooster. Rayleigh's eyes narrowed, and he instantly rushed to the old man with the flat hat, and the western sword in his hand stabbed fiercely from the lower left. At this moment, the old man with the flat hat fell down like a tumbler, and the left half of his body was almost attached to the western sword. Ace and Gabon were severely injured by the slap, so Rayleigh was on guard. At this time, he dodged sideways, and at the same time, he turned his left wrist, and the western sword spun directly into the aorta on the inside of the old man's right leg. However, Rayleigh's move seemed to be seen through by the old man with a flat hat. Not only did he fail to injure the old man with a flat hat, but he was kicked on his left wrist, and the sword in his hand almost dropped. Andre looked at the situation and saw that the situation was unfavorable, so he said, Dad, it looks like I'm going to intervene. Yeah, Whitebeard was also concerned about Ace's safety, so he also planned to take action. Robin and Nami running up the city wall angrily, and ran straight behind Andre. Andre frowned and asked, What's wrong? Before Robin could get angry, he handed Andre a historical document in his hand. When Andre looked at the historical documents, Robin explained, the old man is a descendant of Ilokas, they believe in evil gods, and they have a magical cultivation method. They cultivate their own life energy and then use strange spells. When hypnotized himself and gained power to rival the devil. The power of the devil. Andre glanced at the historical documents. The first page only mentioned the teachings of Ilokas and their pursuit. As for the magical cultivation method and power, he didn't mention too much. Just saying that these people have the power of the devil. Before Robin could continue to speak, he heard a scream. Andre looked up and saw that Rayleigh had also fallen into the sea. On the other hand, the old man with the flat hat was still unscathed. Luyu sternly asked Harold in a deep voice, Did you see how he did it? I don't know. Harold shook his head, he didn't see anything just now. Ashura, a devil. The guru say 5 elders have different origins, but I hope they make me happy. Andre chuckled lightly, and then used Moonstep to jump into the sky. He wanted to experience for himself how strong these 5 old guys were. Chapter 987 The New Gameplay of Conqueror Hockey. Andre approached the burned-out battleship at great speed. Fortunately, the skeleton of the battleship is strong, so there is no need to worry that it will sink into the sea soon. Old Flat Hat looked up at this time. Andre landed directly in front of the old man with the flat hat, then wrapped his arms in front of Shang, and said with a chuckle, "Old guy, you are funny." Is this a kind of compliment, or approval? The old man with the flat hat frowned slightly and asked rhetorically. Of course, you can understand that. Andre shrugged, then walked back and forth in front of the flat hat old man. To be honest, I didn't intend to intervene. Oh, the old man with the flat hat narrowed his eyes. But now, if I let my 2 sons fight you, you'll probably get hurt too. Old man with the flat hat asked in a calm voice, then have you decided to intervene now? Andre shook his head. I'm just here to get a feel for your weird way of attacking so my 2 sons don't get lost. Old man with the flat hat smiled. It's really an expression of a loving father. Andre hooked his finger at the flat hat. Then start your show. The old man with the flat hat nodded silently, then closed his eyes, and quickly recited the incantation in his mouth. Om mani mani hum, man mani hum. Of incantations entered Andre's ears, and it was as if he heard the screams of a real devil. The unspeakable noise and irritability made Andre feel a little uneasy. The blood in the body was churning, and the whole body was about to be uncontrollable. Is that so? A spell similar to mental disturbance. Andre can roughly understand why Ace and Gabon lost control and carried out a furious attack. Well, mani hum. The old man with the flat hat spoke faster, and the spell's interference with Andre intensified. Marco hurriedly asked, Dad, why doesn't Andre use Conqueror Hockey to defend against interference? Because they had just watched the fight between Rayleigh and the old man with a flat hat, Marco and others found that Conqueror Hockey had a certain resistance to spells, or restraint. At least Rayleigh didn't run out of control like Ace and Gabon did. Whitebeard thought for a moment and said, Andre probably wanted to experience the power of the spell for himself. But wouldn't it be too risky, and I wouldn't fight back? Jozu asked worriedly. Thatch then patted Jozu. We have to trust Andre. Yeah. Jozu nodded and turned his attention to the battle situation again. At this time, Andre was subjected to extremely serious mental interference, or, now it cannot be regarded as mental interference, but a mental attack. Andre is really scary to be able to handle this level of load. On another battleship, the long straight-haired old man who silently watched the battle was incomparably astonished. He knew how strong his companion's spell was. Ordinary masters couldn't hold on for 10 seconds under low-frequency spells. His emotions were out of control, revealing his flaws, and now he was chanting mantras at a high frequency, but he still couldn't let Andre get out of control. Ha ha ha. Andre laughed. His violent and domineering aura was naturally released, and he raised his finger and pointed at the old man with the flat hat, and sneered, "Is this level of contempt for me? Not enough, ah." When the old man with the flat hat heard this, his face changed suddenly, and beads of sweat gradually appeared on his forehead, not because he was tired, but because he was nervous. But it is precisely because of this that the old man with the flat hat recites the incantation more quickly, and his double chin is like a Gatling machine gun, spitting out a large number of incantation characters extremely quickly. As the frequency of mantra chanting reached the limit, Andre's body became somewhat unnatural. The muscles of the body begin to twitch involuntarily, spasm, and the pupils sometimes contract and sometimes dilate. This is a clear symptom of nerve damage. It's exciting, it's been a long time. I haven't felt this way for a long time. Andre lowered his head, raised his hand, and looked at his shaking arm. He was trying his best to control his emotions, the blood and muscles that were about to riot in his body, and the more he suppressed it, the more torture and pain he felt. Clear. Torment from the mind, changes in the body that the nerves reflect. Blood gradually flowed out from Andre's eyes, nostrils, mouth corners, ear holes, and then the muscles began to swell rapidly, and the blood overflowed from the pores of the skin. On the other hand, the old man with the flat hat was soaked with sweat. In order to maintain the current super-frequency mental attack, he had already tried his best. Yet Andre's strength and endurance were beyond his imagination. What kind of monster can actually bear such pain? Ha 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 ha. Andre suddenly raised his head and laughed, and his arrogant aura was released with his conqueror haki. And conqueror haki is also a kind of mental attack. I saw conqueror haki directly attack the flat hat old man. The pupils of the old man with the flat hat dilated, and at the same time his body shook violently, his feet could not stop backing up again and again, and he retreated to the side of the ship. Puff! A mouthful of blood spit out, and the old man with the flat hat knelt on the ground at the same time, coughing up blood. Spiritual backlash. My hometown, you really didn't disappoint me. It's a very interesting mental attack, so I accepted it rudely. As soon as Andre spoke, Gorosei 5 elders heard the words, and everyone was shocked. You must know that the incantation of the old man with the flat hat is capable of mental interference and mental attack, and it takes years of practice to learn it. The old man with the flat hat rested on the ground with one hand, while ignoring the flames burning on the side of the ship, he forcibly stood up with the side of the ship. At this time, he looked horrified. Have you learned it? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Conqueror haki is somewhat similar to your so-called spell. In the past, I just used it to stun people or stun others. Although it has a good practical use, compared to armament and observation haki, in actual combat, the number of times of using it is relatively small, but your mental attack is really easy to use, and the effect is also good. Just use this move with Rayleigh who is slapping the shadow. Quote. Andre's elaboration made the old man with the flat hat look sluggish and motionless as if struck by lightning. He finally understood why Andre had to stand still under his attack, just to feel the attack method of the spell more deeply, and finally decipher the secret of the spell on the spot, and copy the attack method in return. Chapter 988 Similar Abilities, Different Strengths. Andre is an out-and-out madman. There is nothing in this world that he dare not do. Of course, he also has madness. Although he has never defeated Whitebeard and obtained the title of the strongest man from him, the powerhouses of the world are well aware of it. Andre is invincible one-on-one, and deserves to be the first person at the peak level. And today Andre once again showed his talent, the strongest fighting talent, to the powerhouses of the world. Okay, you're no longer mysterious to me, so who's next? Andre's eyes turned to the mustache old man, the long straight-haired old man, and the blonde old man who was kicked by Ace. Must be something unusual about these three old men being able to form the Gorosei 5 elders together with the old man with the flat hat and the old man with bald glasses and become the backbone of the world government. The long straight-haired old man said at this moment, the old man also wants to have a fight with you. Well, let's start your show then. Andre hooked his fingers at the long straight-haired old man. The long straight-haired old man nodded, and then jumped in front of Andre. His movements were elegant, but not steady, and he looked like a world expert. Ah! A majestic aura erupted from the long straight-haired old man. Andre said with a playful smile, it's very imposing. The long straight-haired old man ignored Andre's provocation. At this time, he came to Andre in 3 or 2 steps, raised his arm at the same time, and cut a knife to Andre's arm. Andre raised his arm subconsciously, blocking the long straight-haired old man's knife. Clang! Like a real metal crash. The long straight-haired old man's hand knife was as sharp as a sharp blade. Waiting for Andre to make a few jokes, the long straight-haired old man directly bent his elbow and spun his elbow to hit him. Skill type, Andre thought to himself, raising his left arm in front of Shang. Bang! After this blow, Andre actually retreated more than 10 steps in a row. How is it possible? To beat Andre back. What the hell did this old guy do? How can he be so powerful? Walt's reaction was the most intense. He had personally felt Andre's brute force, and wanted to repel Andre unless he used the 100 times the buff of Momo fruit. Come on, old man, you've got me interested. Andre hooked his fingers at the long straight hair. The long straight-haired old man continued to charge Andre with a cold face. This time, his attack speed was even faster, and he was still the first to attack with a knife, followed by flying knees, turning around and swinging his legs, kicking with his legs in the air. Fighting technique that the blonde old man just used. The fighting technique of the long straight-haired old man is not very clever, but the power it exerts is unexpected. If you want to describe it vividly, it is like an inconspicuous child who suddenly hits the power that can knock down a bull. Andre patted the shoe print in front of Shang. At this moment, he suddenly said, "Old guy, you are a fruit person, and it's a paramesha devil fruit similar to me." Did you see it? The long straight-haired old man Vivi smiled and admitted it very calmly. Yeah, there is a feeling of meeting the same kind. Andre nodded. At this time he took off his cloak and tore off some damaged shirt. Speed and strength always suddenly increase. Burst. This is not simple the extent to which the fighting technique can be achieved. Quote. In fact, there are many similar devil fruits in the OP. Example, Luffy's rubber fruit ability is somewhat similar to Bellamy's spring fruit ability, which can stretch and compress to increase its own strength. Another example is Buggy's split fruit and Berrygood's slippery fruit, which can both evade attacks by splitting their bodies. Of course, there are still differences, but it is true that the abilities are partially similar. Yes, this old man's devil fruit is indeed somewhat similar to yours, but it has no side effects. It is a more perfect devil fruit than you. If you want to rank it, the old man's fruit is the highest in paramesha. A few rare fruits at the spire of devil fruits. Quote. The long straight-haired old man was very confident and calm, because what he said next shocked everyone, because the old man's devil fruit does not need to bear the burden of the body, that is to say, you can use it as you want and without restrictions. Well, I can see that just now you attacked continuously, bursting out continuously, but there was no pause. But what is that? The corner of Andre's mouth lifted, revealing a grim smile. My strong fruit has made my way to the top, and you? The long straight-haired old man choked for a moment. In that case, let's see who is the stronger devil fruit between us. A cold light flashed in Andre's eyes, then the muscles in his legs swelled, and his speed suddenly increased, 70 times the speed burst. When the long straight-haired old man saw Andre's seriousness, he also got a lot of energy and dealt with it with all his might. Both of them have the ability to increase and explode their speed and strength, so their confrontation is very exciting. The banging of fists and fists, the collision of fist pressure and fist pressure, bursts of sonic booms, can be heard endlessly. The high frequency of the two attacking each other made everyone stunned and dazzled. What is even more terrifying is that the fists and feet of the two contain terrifying power. Good, come again. Andre raised his foot and gave the long straight-haired old man a high whip leg. The long straight-haired old man ducked short, and at the same time a short straight punch hit Andre's leg. But before the fist fell, Andre sneered. Ha ha. 80 times the speed burst. Without waiting for his body to balance, Andre used his left foot as a fulcrum, and threw his right fist again, a powerful lower hook that landed firmly on the long straight-haired old man's mouth. Click. Click. 2 cracks sounded. Andre's knee joint was broken by a fist, and the long straight-haired old man was even more miserable. He was directly smashed by a punch, and the bone was shattered and pierced through the lobe of his lung. Puff. The long straight-haired old man was half knelt on the ground, blood blisters constantly coming out of his mouth. What did you just say? Your devil fruit is higher than mine, right? At this time, Andre connected his own bones in front of the long straight-haired old man, and relied on the terrible resilience of the strong fruit to repair the broken joints, muscles and so on. Chapter 989 The Strongest Growth. Andre's streak of defeating 2 of the Gorosei, 5 elders once again showed his terrifying power. Unbeatable Andre. Luffy, Ace, Rayleigh, Gaban and others were silent. Sengoku, Garp were silent. At the same time, Fold Yawu, who defeated the bald old man with glasses, also turned towards Andre at this time. It seems that I can't have a good time today, that's all, let's go together, let me play for the last time. Andre ignored Fold Yawu, and instead hooked at the mustache old man and the blonde old man. Clay figurines have a 3-point earthiness, and rabbits even bite people in a hurry. Andre's arrogant provocation, the mustache old man and the blonde old man naturally couldn't bear it. Andre, don't underestimate us. The old man with the mustache has a violent temper. His face is trembling, his nostrils are shrinking and expanding, and he is obviously angry. The blonde old man was kicked by Ace and injured his balls, but he still stood up despite the pain. Andre hee isho, moving his muscles and bones and said, I'll give you 10 minutes to perform. After 10 minutes, it will be dead or alive, depending on my mood. Of course, if it can make me happy, the chance of survival will be higher. Ah! Ah! The old man with the mustache roared loudly, his bulging muscles shattering his shirt instantly. The same goes for the blonde old man. It can be seen that these 2 guys are masters who are proficient in fighting techniques and rigorously cultivate their physique. The momentum is good. Andre gave them a high evaluation. Go to hell. The old man with the mustache rushed over at this time, punching directly at Andre's face. The blonde old man came to Andre's left side with a shaved one, forcibly raised his leg, and kicked Andre's lower back with a kick. The 2 old men should have often exchanged ideas in the past, so they were very familiar with each other's attack methods, and they cooperated very well at this time. Power, speed and timing are good, but it's not enough. Andre didn't dodge or evade, only to see that he didn't retreat, but instead advanced, facing the old man with mustache. He directly exploded his speed, and hit the old man with a heavy punch, hitting the old man with mustache heavily on the face. The power of this punch was very heavy, and it directly smashed the old man's face with a mustache and shattered 2 teeth. Close his fists. Andre forced his body to move forward, stomped his right foot hard, turning his body around abruptly, and turned around with another belly punch, hitting the blonde old man's ribs hard. Between the electric light and flint, 2 punches were thrown in a row, breaking the cooperation between the 2, and knocking them off. Is that how you are? Andre twisted his neck, a look of disdain on his face. Damn it. Although the blonde old man was hit hard in the ribs by the belly punch, his body is very strong. If it wasn't for Ace who just kicked the balls, he wouldn't be able to show his full strength. The old man with mustache was also very resistant to beatings. At this time, he spat out his broken teeth, wiped the blood stains from the corners of his mouth, and stood up again. Looks like you guys are really good at fighting and can make me happy for a while. At this time, Andre raised his arms, like a cross, and continued to hook his fingers towards the 2 of them. Come on, continue. Ah. Ah. This time, learning from the experience just now, the mustache old man and the blonde old man gave up the plan to flank Andre from behind the wall. Instead, they stood side by side and attacked Andre from left to right. The blonde old man was taller. He used his legs as the main attack. The mustache old man had stubby limbs. The 2 old men are flexible in movement, cooperate tacitly, advance and retreat properly, sometimes cross-attack, sometimes cooperate and intersperse, and the combination of their moves is even more eye-opening. Sabo, kid, look carefully, this is a great learning opportunity. At this time Andre still did not forget to remind Sabo and Kid. Yes. Kid and Sabo responded at the same time. This scene fell in the eyes of the long straight-haired old man, and his eyes were even more horrified. Under the combined attack of the 2, how calm is Andre's strength? The old man with the flat hat who was lying on the side, and the old man with long straight hair were like brothers and sisters at this time. Cough. It seems that even if the 5 of us join forces, if we don't fight to the death, there is no chance of victory at all. Bald old man with glasses echoed, yeah, fighting Andre one by one is like giving him a chance to beat him one by one. Interesting. Foldyawu had already collected his sword at this time. He never thought of killing Gorose, 5 elders from beginning to end. He just wanted to convince these 5 old guys and let them serve him, that's it. After all, the 5 dead people were worthless to him, so he had no intention of getting into trouble at this time. Marco, who had been fighting all the time, suddenly asked an astonishing question. Dad, has Andre's strength gotten stronger again? Whitebeard stared at the battle situation intently, and then said after a while, he has been getting stronger, and it is precisely because of this that he is getting more and more lonely. The days of invincibility are too hard. As soon as these words came out, Jozu, Thatch, Vista and others all widened their eyes. Sure enough, it's the same as what I guessed. Redfield was not surprised. In fact, he noticed the change from Andre's momentum just now, especially compared to Andre's state during the war. The strength of the boss is still improving. How is this possible? The boss has obviously not practiced for a long time. This news is even more shocking to Carlos, Harold and others. It is very difficult for them to improve their strength now. For example, Mahawk, in addition to training the strength of his muscles, he occasionally staring at the sea, or in a daze in the mountains, pursuing the elusive true meaning of kendo, in order to improve one's own strength. However, the slow progress caused by the bottleneck is a difficult problem in front of everyone. At this time, Guliva, who was in charge of leading the medical team to prepare for the treatment, said, the zhuang fruit is the paramesha fruit with the strongest growth potential. In theory, if the side effects are solved, it can theoretically improve one's potential infinitely, because his body the cells will convert the daily intake of food into life energy, which is completely absorbed by the body, thereby passively improving his physical strength, that is, unless Andre stops eating, stops his heartbeat, until the whole body's life energy until they are swallowed up by the devil. Gerva's answer was stunned. Other words, as long as Andre is alive, even if he is sleeping, is he improving his own strength. Chapter 990 Desperate Strength. The blonde old man's legs are sharp, and his legs are more aggressive than Sanji's devilish feet. There is no doubt that if there is a mountain in front of you, it will be easily broken by the blonde old man. And the old man with the mustache is like a shield. He is very, very resistant to beatings. Even though his face has been beaten into a pig's head and seriously deformed, he is still stable. Under the attack of the 2 old men, Andre's battle gradually became more tragic. The fists and feet hit each other, the fists hit the flesh and blood were blurred, the fist pressure and the wind on the legs, a little scratched, will bring a blood mist. Exciting, you 2 old guys are doing really well. Andre laughed, punched out of his feet, full of madness. The 2 old men were gnashing their teeth at this time, and they fought hard with Andre. Not for anything else, just displeased with Andre's arrogant appearance. Bang! With a muffled sound, the blonde old man kicked Andre's waist hard. However, this foot seemed to be kicked on a steel plate. It didn't matter whether Andre was injured or not, but the blonde old man's right thumb was injured, and there was a faint sound of bone cracking. Hey, old man, are your feet all right? The moment Andre ran the blonde old man with words, the mustache old man jumped up and slammed the top of his head into Andre's chin. And the blonde old man didn't care about the injury of his right foot, and directly slapped Andre's lower abdomen with his claws. All 3 kept armament hockey covering their entire bodies, which was quite exhausting. At this moment, Andre sneered and leaned his head back, dodging the moment when the old man with the mustache collided. At the same time, his left hand stretched forward, clasping the wrist of the blonde old man, and then his waist followed, and he made a backward swing. Boom! This move is a disguised over-the-shoulder fall. Although the posture is very strange, it is still very powerful. The blonde old man was slammed to the ground. Since his chin was on the ground first, his teeth were damaged and blood shot out. He was disfigured on the spot. Although the old man with the mustache smashed his head into the air, André's waist was bent back, and it took time to readjust his posture, so he decisively raised his fist and hit André's lower abdomen hard. The fists fell on André's stomach like raindrops, but there was no sound of bang bang bang. Bang 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 bang. As if hitting a steel plate, the old man with the mustache felt numb and swollen. André jumped aside with a flip, then twisted his arms, patted his lower abdomen and asked, "Is my overlord armor strong enough?" Damn, the mustache old man and the blonde old man stood together again. Originally, they thought that the two of them might be able to draw with André, but they were applauded by André. What else is there to do? Use them all, I want to go home happily. André chuckled, the laughter was so harsh, the smile was so cheap, at least that's what the blonde old man and the mustache old man thought. The blonde old man's face was ashen, and at this time his feet were one after the other, constantly rubbing on the bottom of the boat. André frowned slightly. He could hear the blonde old man's waist muscles were expanding, and the blood in his legs was accelerating, which was a sign of accumulating strength. As expected, the blonde old man's waist was straight, and his body suddenly tinged forward. Broken legs. Although the broken wind leg is not so mysterious and legendary compared with the Shira flow in the mantra, and even the name is not as cool as the devil wind foot, even a little low, but it is also one of the lost leg techniques after all, and the moves are strange. The attack frequency and duration are far better than those of demon wind foot. The first leg of the white crane kicked. The second leg of the war elephant stepped on the leg. The third leg of the wolf was amputated. Fourth leg violent ape kick. The fifth leg of the tiger splits. Then, using the left foot as the fulcrum, after the sixth hit of the wild horse, the seventh hit to lift the leg and the eighth hit to sweep the leg. The attack is fierce, and the strength of each leg is stronger than the previous blow. The ninth hit with the whip leg, the 10th hit with the straight leg kicked hard, then the leg was retracted and the knee hit, turned around and then swing the leg. After 12 blows, André's eyes also had a solemn look. The profound truth of Fire Phoenix Fist. Fire Phoenix spreads its wings. At this time, the blonde old man was already close to him. His arms were spread out, his hands were tensed into hand knives, and at the same time, the flames ignited due to friction. Friction covered his whole body, like a flaming phoenix bird born in the raging fire, wanting to spread its wings and fly high. At the same time, the old man with the mustache was also cooperating and completed the charge, Earth Shah Fist. Although the old man with the mustache is not as gorgeous as the old man with the blonde hair, his fists contain terrifying destructive power. Good come. André's eyes narrowed. At this time, he finally got serious. He was holding his breath, his muscles were tense, his hands were clenched into claws, and he roared, "Dragon Claw Fist, Arlong covers the sea." Between the lightning and flint, André's claws raised and lowered as he grabbed the blonde old man's neck and the mustache's forehead at the same time. Rip _ Knife slashed open André's chest, and blood shot out. Fist slammed into André's stomach, a mouthful of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. However, the claws are even more fierce. A claw tore the blonde old man's neck, blood was blurred, and blood spurted wildly. One claw shattered the skull of the old man with the mustache, his fingers embedded in the skull, and the blood flowed like a stream. Ah! André grabbed the blonde old man's neck with one hand and the mustache's head with the other, and then roared up to the sky, showing his domineering and ferocity. Puff, puff. Sure enough, it's not difficult for the two of you, it's boring. Throwing the blonde old man and the mustache old head aside like garbage, André turned around in disdain, and did not kill, as he said earlier. Today's this he was just looking for excitement, and the performance of the two old men made him quite satisfied. What's more, he wants to experience the feeling of playing 1-on-5, rather than the current lack of challenge. Hard. It was such an easy win. Charlotte Linlin looked solemn, and her children, including Smoothie and Katakori, were blue. Put yourself in the shoes and think, if the two of them face Andre, how can they survive? The answer is cruel, it makes them unacceptable, and it makes them despair. Andre used the moon step to jump into the sky, like a king, overlooking the crowd. I am waiting for your challenge, no matter how many people come, you can use any strategy. Finally, his eyes fell on Fulvyawu, who had an unusual expression and remained silent. Chapter 991 Sanji's Request. The Gorosei 5 elders fled away on the battleship in a panic, under the cover of Sora and Crane and others. Although Long wanted to chase him down, Fulvyawu was untrustworthy, and his son Luffy was seriously injured, so he could only let them go temporarily. Judge breathed a sigh of relief, but he didn't dare to linger for a moment. He had to rush back to North Blue immediately to deploy and prepare for the crusade sent by the world government. As for Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, there is no more trouble. After all, the strength Andre showed today gave them no desire to fight again. This conflict provoked by Andre was temporarily ended because of Andre's intervention. How cruel the war will be in the future is not something Andre wants to manage. Inside the palace, Whitebeard is waiting for the result of Gerva's treatment of Ace. Ace was seriously injured, the Shangbor collapsed, and the broken bones pierced many internal organs, so a long operation was required. Dad, how's the surgery? Andre came to visit at this time. His mouth was also wrapped bandaged, the blonde old man's mysterious ultimate move, although it did not cause fatal damage to him. It still left a deep impression even after applying the ointment. The wound will take several days to heal. I don't know, I haven't come out yet. Whitebeard shook his head. Although he had been prepared for a long time, the child was injured and his heart was very uncomfortable. Well, it'll be fine with Gerva performing the operation on him personally, and after today's battle, Ace should have a good growth. Andre patted Whitebeard's shoulder and said a few words of relief. Yeah, Whitebeard nodded, but his eyes were still full of worry. After all, this was the worst injury Ace had ever suffered so far. Ace is not the only one who is also undergoing surgery. Luffy was also operating in the room, while Garp and Dragon waited outside the door. It was Chopper who performed the operation on Luffy, and the operation had been going on for a full 5 hours. Luffy's injury was worse than Ace's, and the repair work on his internal organs was slowly progressing. At this time, Garp and Dragon were sitting side by side. The father and son didn't speak. The atmosphere seemed a little heavy. As soon as Andre spoke, he broke the atmosphere of the two father and sons sit down, and at the same time threw the jug from his waist. Old Garp, this is the medicinal wine I use, it will help relieve your injury. Garp wasn't polite, just unscrewed the cap and poured a big mouthful of medicinal wine into his mouth. Dragon's fingers kept crossing and nodding, and his Adam's apple moved up and down. He had something to say, but couldn't say it. Andre saw this scene in his eyes, and after a while, he said, after all, it's a father and son. Is it necessary to be so stiff? Even if the positions are different, the blood flowing in the body is the same. Garp clenched his fists and Dragon lowered his head. Hey, it's hard for an honest official to cut off housework, let alone a pirate leader like me. Forget it, you can do whatever you like. Andre shook his head, then turned and left. As for the Garp family, he was too lazy to bother. Andre was about to return to his room when he heard a fight as he passed the garden. I went to find the sound, but I saw that in the open space at the flower garden, Sabo and Kid were going back and forth, fighting lively. Andre didn't interrupt the two, but found a place and watched silently. Sabo and Kid each used their own moves and their usual fighting skills to fight against each other. Over and over, they attacked each other for nearly 100 moves, and there was no winner. This fight didn't end until both of them were sweating profusely. Master. Father. Sabo and Kid stopped each other tacitly, then turned around and greeted Andre. Ting is good. Andre got up and walked over to the two of them, rubbing their heads. Neither Sabo nor Kid showed the euphoric expressions they should have when they were complimented. Perhaps Andre's stimulation to the two of them today was too serious. Andre could see through the thoughts of the two, but he didn't say anything, just patted their shoulders. Go take a shower, there's a family dinner tonight. Yes, Sabo and Kid responded at the same time. But after Andre left, there was another fight in the garden. Hey, if I had known that today would stimulate them like this, I would have just made a plan. Andre shook his head, a wry smile on his face. But not long after walking, in the corridor, I saw a scene that made people laugh and laugh. Please duel with me. Zoro was wearing a clean kendo suit, but with a hood on his head. He stopped Harold, Mihawk, and Shiryu of the Rain. Are you sick, kid? I don't have time to accompany the children at home. Harold waved his hands in disgust, backed away and pushed Zoro away. I'm not interested in messing around with a kid either. Shiryu of the Rain also left. Only Mihawk didn't leave. He looked down at Zoro. Are you really going to fight me? Yes, Zoro replied firmly. You're going to die, Mihawk said again. Zoro's face showed firmness. If I can die at your hands, it can only be said that I am not good at learning. I feel your awakening. Mihawk nodded, then said to Zoro, come with me. Watching Mihawk take Zoro to the martial arts field, Andre didn't follow. Although he was also curious about whether Zoro and Mihawk would trigger the master relationship, he was also a little tired today, and it was time to take a good rest. It's just that Andre just went to the attic when he saw Reiju and Sanji kneeling on the ground at the entrance of the stairs on the third floor. Reiju is now Andre's daughter-in-law, so he asks patiently, what are you doing? Heavily to Andre, then pleaded, please release my master. Father, although Sanji's request is reckless, please. Andre waved his hand and interrupted Reiju. Makino likes Zeph's meals, Hancock likes his desserts, and of course I like his grilled meats, so I can't agree to this request, but... But what? Sanji asked hastily. Andre crouched down and said in Sanji's ear, if you can take off Charlotte Linlin's head, or Fo Yao's head, then I will reconsider and reunite you master and apprentice. Chapter 992 Seriously Kizaru. Although Dragon did not continue to hunt down Gorosei, 5 elders and his party, Charlotte Linlin, Shinx, and Buggy joined forces and seemed to fall into the water and clean up their group completely. But this is understandable. After all, the hatred between the world government and the pirates is deep, and Rayleigh and Gabon were injured by Gorosei, 5 elders successively, so Shinx and Buggy have no reason not to take revenge. Charlotte Linlin felt that if she could kill the Gorosei, 5 elders group, it would be a great boost to her reputation, and once the Gorosei, 5 elders died, the world government would only exist in name only. Facing the pursuit of Charlotte Linlin, Shinx and Buggy, only the bald old man with glasses and Sora, Crane, and Kizaru challenged, because everyone else was injured and seriously injured. These despicable pirates must be wiped out. Gorosei, 5 elders, this is the boat capsized in the gutter, and now aside from cursing, I can only hope my boat can go faster. As long as you can leave Andre's territory, you can join the fleet, and you will have the power to fight. Obviously, Charlotte Linlin and others also know this, and the number of warships on the 3 sides is not enough to fight against the world government and marine, so they are all exhausted and must kill these seriously injured old guys. Kizaru urged the sailors on the ship, don't be afraid, just get out of here and be safe. Yes, Marshal. The Marines were already startled and had no fighting spirit at all. Looking at the faces of the sailors who were pale with fear, Kizaru sneered inwardly, damn Andre, since you want to do something, why not just kill all these old guys? Of course, Kizaru only dared to think about it in his heart. After all, he was still Marshal Marine and a soldier of the world government. Damn, are you going to let them escape? Buggy is furious, he now wants to stuff himself in the cannon and shoot on Marine's warship. Shanks was also a little unwilling. This is also impossible, their ship is faster than ours. Just as Buggy and Shanks were communicating, a group of big birds suddenly appeared on the sea ahead. What is that? Moji immediately climbed up the main mast and looked out through the binoculars. "Boss, there are people in the sky, many people." "What did you say?" Buggy immediately snatched the telescope from one of his subordinates. In the field of vision, a group of people wearing Germa 66 feet patterned battlesuits are flying towards Marine's battleship at a very fast speed. These people are all carrying flying machines. There is no doubt that this is the flying unit of the Kingdom of Germa 66. Find the target and prepare to drop the bomb. Each of the flying troops took out bundles of bombs from their waists. Long Yu Shoal was played by shrimp, Tiger fell and Pingyang was bullied by dogs. Judge. When the old man with glasses saw all this, anger burned in his eyes. "Kizaru, kill them." Glasses ordered Kizaru immediately. Yes. Kizaru raised his finger immediately, and the laser light kept shooting to the sky. Under the intense lightning shot, dozens of people were penetrated in an instant. "Can't get close, change tactics." The commander of the flying unit was none other than Yuji. At this time, he took out a bazooka from his waist and aimed at the ship below. "Shoot!" Whoosh whoosh tilde tilde. The rocket dragged its long tail and hit the ship precisely. These rockets have armor-piercing capabilities, so after hitting, the warhead drilled deep into the ship, causing a fire inside the ship. "Quickly put out the fire. Go and fetch water." The sailors panicked and panicked. Not only did they fail to control the fire, but they were in chaos on offense and defense. If you scumbags are defeated, then first, Marshal Marine, will really be called the laughing stock of the world. Yasukani no Magatama. Kizaru immediately jumped into the sky with elementalization, and at the same time released countless light bullets from his body. In the blink of an eye, the indiscriminate shooting of the dense light bullets wiped out the flying troops brought by Yangji. Retreat. Yuji was frightened on the spot, so he immediately ordered a retreat. However, due to the gap of the flight force, the number 3 power turbine device under the deck of the ship caught fire, and the speed of the ship suddenly dropped. Of course, this is definitely bad news for Kizaru. Kill them. Seeing Marine's battleship slowing down and smoking thick smoke, as long as you're not blind, you'll know that the other party's ship is out of order. While you are sick, I will kill you. Shanks and Buggy immediately ordered the ships to catch up, and at the same time, they were ready for a pickup battle. Bald old man with glasses saw the enemy ship chasing after him, and immediately ordered, "Kizaru, you are responsible for breaking the queen." "Nani?" Kizaru's eyes widened. "This is an order." The order of the bald old man with glasses had no room for change. Yes. Kizaru's heart fluttered, but there was nothing he could do, unless he rebelled at this time. Seeing that Kizaru dashed toward his own battleship from the air, both Shanks and Buggy had puzzled looks on their faces. Hovering in the air, Kizaru raised his hands and pointed at Buggy and Shanks' ship. Laser beam. Shish _ 2 huge laser beams shot out. However, Shanks and Buggy are not sloppy, and the mere elemental attacks are ineffective against them. Almost at the same time, the two drew out their swords at the same time, blocking the laser light and refracting it in other directions. It's really nerve-wracking. I have to deal with 2 4 Emperor-level powerhouses alone, as well as a clown king who is also not weak. Kizaru smiled helplessly, and at this time his hands had already condensed 2 Tiankong cloud swords. "Monkey, are you looking for death?" Lajalu sneered loudly. Kizaru didn't answer, but just leaned down and charged down, light blast. At this time, Kizaru turned into a strong light, and the target turned out to be Shanks. Because in his opinion, holding Shanks is more valuable. Humph! Shanks snorted coldly and drew his sword at the same time. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, it just blocked the falling glare. The sword energy and the light violently collided and rubbed, and suddenly a dazzling, strong light that was enough to temporarily blind people, and at the same time, this strong light actually pushed Shanks backwards. What an amazing power! Shanks was shocked, because in his impression, Kizaru has always been a despicable, wretched, and even a bit greedy for life and death. However, the power that Kizaru is showing now is actually the level of a Kainu. Strong light dissipated, and Kizaru reappeared. At this time, he waved the double swords in his hands, with killing intent in his eyes. Don't underestimate me. If I'm serious, I'm very strong. Chapter 993 Charlotte Linlin's Rare Earnestness. Kizaru's strength has always been criticized by the world, perhaps because this guy steals and plays tricks, and often plays soy sauce on the battlefield, so the strength of Kizaru is often so weak. However, is this really the case? You must have never tried the taste of being slashed by the speed of light. At this time, Kizaru was holding two Tiancong cloud swords, which were one size smaller, and moved at the speed of light by the speed of light brought by the shining fruit, while constantly swinging the sword. Attack Shanks. Although Shanks predicted Kizaru's actions in advance with observation haki, his own reaction speed was dwarfed by the speed of light. In addition, Shanks is one-armed, and one-armed is invincible to both hands. How can monkeys become so powerful? Usopp, Reikulu and others couldn't believe it. Stab, ray cut. Kizaru chuckled, and then thousands of golden rays of light appeared, and countless rays of light hit Shanks. Shanks knew that he couldn't dodge, so he could only tighten his muscles while resisting with armament haki. Going to the light is not an ordinary laser light, but a light-speed sword in the true sense. Ding ding ding. Even though Shanks' observation haki is very strong, under such dense and high-frequency lightsaber attacks, his body has already endured a lot of load, and maintaining armament haki's defense for a long time has increased his own wear and tear. Really tenacious, as expected of the fourth emperor. Kizaru chuckled. This is not a compliment, it is full of sarcasm and provocation. Damn guy. Shanks clenched his sword and burst into a terrifying conqueror haki himself. Kizaru raised his hand, covered his face, and pretended to be frightened. Yo. Are you going to be angry? Monkey, you will regret angering me. Shanks' eyes lit up with raging flames, and at the same time his whole body muscles began to tighten, which was a sign of energy accumulation. Even without observation haki to listen, Kizaru knew Shanks was going all out. Really, I'm just joking, don't try so hard. Although Kizaru was still joking and saying some cold jokes, his eyes were already sharp at this time. Blink of an eye, I saw countless golden light spots appearing on Kizaru's body. These golden light spots were flying like fireflies, and then a 2-meter-long Tiancong cloud sword condensed in the air. These days, the cloud swords all point to Shanks. Want to try the taste of being penetrated by 10,000 swords? Kizaru flicked his fingers, and tens of thousands of Tiancong cloud swords fell from the sky. When the first sword fell, it not only pierced the deck, but also caused an explosion. The explosion blew up countless sawdust and raged flames. Light and heat, this is one of the properties of light. The fire snake sprang from the deck, the fire burned all over the ship, and the smoke billowed into the sky. Boom. Bombing, of tens of thousands of Tiancong Yunjian, the entire battleship was instantly bombed into wreckage. But at this moment, I heard a roar. Ah! Shanks rushed out of the thick smoke at this time. He looked a little embarrassed at this time, but there was indescribable hatred and anger in his eyes. A powerful, heavy slash slashed Kizaru's body hard. Kizaru was split on the spot by this sword. Did you win? Cough, I don't know. Bambek, Reikulu and others stood on the wreckage of the ship at this time, waiting for the smoke to dissipate. Shanks, don't push me into a corner. With a sneer from Kizaru, a huge beam of light swept away the smoke, and Shanks was pushed into the sea. Tackling one ship, and one more. Kizaru jumped up at this point, no longer targeting Shanks. Boss. Boss. And others did not care about intercepting Kizaru, and immediately checked Shanks' situation. At this time, Shanks rushed out of the sea with an angry face. Damn monkey, I have to kill him. Seeing that Shanks was all right, Bambek and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, Kizaru's goal at this time is Charlotte Linlin, of course, to solve Charlotte Linlin's ship. As long as the ships of Shanks and Charlotte Linlin are dealt with, no matter how strong they are, they will not be able to catch up with the Gorosei, 5 elders. As for Buggy, is he capable of dealing with the Gorosei, 5 elders alone? Kizaru is a smart man, he will use the most effective and efficient means to achieve his goals, and his task is only after the end, at least for now, his task has been half completed. Shanks' ship was destroyed by Kizaru, which Charlotte Linlin doesn't know yet, because her ship is in charge of Detour. The purpose is to go around in front of Gorosei, 5 elders and others, and then double team with Shanks and Buggy. At this moment, a golden light suddenly flashed in the sky, and then the blonde hair dissipated, revealing Kizaru's flat face. Mama mama, Charlotte Linlin asked with a chuckle, Kizaru, why are you here? Kizaru gave his signature old chrysanthemum, fancy smile and said, I'm sorry, Mom, I have to make you stop. Are you here for death? Don't talk nonsense with him, let me kill him. Smoothie and Katakuri, one by one, stood up one after another, making gestures to start. Charlotte Linlin ignored the request of her 2 sons and asked coldly, do you think you have the strength? Kizaru pursed his lips and replied, Auntie, I know you are very strong, but I am also very strong. I haven't done it in years, and the last time I did it was against Andre. Charlotte Linlin stood up at this moment, arms raised at the same time, when the sea churned and the weather changed suddenly. After a while, the sky suddenly dimmed, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and the sea was choppy. Click, click. As the lightning fell, clumps of thunderclouds appeared on Charlotte Linlin's left hand, and clumps of fireballs appeared on her right hand. Thundercloud Zeus. Sun Prometheus. I haven't seen you use it in years, Auntie. Kizaru's face changed slightly, he didn't expect Charlotte Linlin to be so serious. You must know that Charlotte Linlin has not played seriously with people for many years. Kizaru, I still remember how you ran away from me back then, so do you really want to experience a nightmare again? Charlotte Linlin grinned Isho, his face full of hideous. Chapter 994, Kizaru's Revenge. Charlotte Linlin ascended the throne of the 4 emperors as a woman. If she did not have the strength to match, then she would not be able to dominate one side at all, but not many people have really seen her horrible side. To be precise, they have seen her real. There are not many living people who are strong and do not die. And the young Kizaru is one of them. At that time, Kizaru did not eat the glittering fruit. He fled under the terror of Charlotte Linlin, and finally managed to sneak into the sea and escaped. Now that the past is brought up, Kizaru's mind can't help but recall the scene at that time. Kizaru officially joined Marine at the age of 26, and Akainu was in the same group. The 2 were Zephyr's most outstanding students when they were in the military school. After joining Marine, they were also given the name of Monster. It is precisely because of Marine's internal praise that both Kizaru and Akainu have high self-esteem, and always feel that they can traverse the sea. It turned out that 29 years ago, that year in the New World, that year Kizaru was 29 years old, that year he met Charlotte Linlin. The violent lightning and flames in the memory were almost killed, and finally escaped from the desperate situation. These scenes are all unforgettable memories of Kizaru. Kizaru chuckled and sighed. Yeah, time flies so fast, 29 years have passed in the blink of an eye, but it is because of you that I redefine the word, monster, and then practice harder. Charlotte Linlin asked, well, as you put it, do you have to thank me for what you are now? Of course, you left me with an unforgettable defeat back then, and I always wanted to give it back to you. As soon as Kizaru's voice fell, his eyes narrowed, and his body exuded a chilling aura. Most serious and murderous battle for Kizaru, apart from the 7 Waters battle against Andre. Mama mama, the little sheep back then still had the courage to face me. Although Charlotte Linlin was smiling, a cold light flashed in her eyes, revealing murderous intent. Ah! With a low roar, he saw a little golden light emanating from Kizaru's body. The golden light was dazzling, like the stars in the sky, Wan Jian. Golden light condensed into tens of thousands of cloud swords in the sky according to Kizaru's will, and surrounded Charlotte Linlin's fleet. Such a huge number. What a terrifying strength. Smoothie and Katakori's faces were ashen. Originally, they thought that Kizaru was vulnerable, but they never imagined that this guy who had never shown himself would have such terrifying strength. Mama. It's getting more and more interesting. Charlotte Linlin squinted when Thundercloud Zeus in her left hand began to yell, "Linlin, let me chop him to death." Prometheus, the sun in his right hand, is also shouting, "Linlin, I will burn him to charcoal." Looks like the two little guys can't wait. Charlotte Linlin slyly then raised her left hand, urging Thundercloud Zeus. In the blink of an eye, the thundercloud triggered thunder and lightning, and in the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of thunder and lightning were dropped. Kizaru's pupils shrank, and at this time, he also released a large number of Amangura cloud swords to resist Charlotte Linlin's lightning strike. Click, click. Lightning-shaped thunder and lightning continued to fall and collided with Tiankong Yunjian, causing a huge explosion. It seems that your strength has improved a lot, then try this again. Charlotte Linlin raised her hand, urging the sun, Prometheus in her right hand. The flames spewed out, like the fire burning the sky, and suddenly burned towards Kizaru. Kizaru's eyes were wide open, and at the same time, his body emitted a lot of golden light, condensing into a golden barrier like an eggshell. However, under the burning flames, the golden barrier seems to be unable to withstand such a terrifying impact. Hack him to death. Scorch him. Thundercloud Zeus and Sun Prometheus were clamoring, obviously excited. Charlotte Linlin had already sat back in her seat at this time, quietly admiring Kizaru, who was attacked by lightning and flames, and sneered, "Kizaru, if your strength is only this, then your fate will end here." Quote. Kizaru didn't say a word, and he gritted his teeth and resisted, while the golden light flashed again. These golden light spots rose quietly into the sky, and above the thick clouds, they condensed into a huge Tiankong cloud sword that could even be described as a big exaggeration. This is Kizaru's trump card and his cunning, using himself as a bait to attract the attention of Charlotte Linlin, using Charlotte Linlin's negligence to launch a fatal blow. Sure enough, on Charlotte Linlin's ship, she and her children and subordinates did not seem to notice the danger on the clouds. But that's not all, at least Charlotte Linlin's eldest son Perospero was full of doubts at this time. Although Perospero's strength is average, but his brain is good, he is good at observing words, and he makes suggestions. It is with his wisdom that he helps Charlotte Linlin to ascend to the throne of the Queen, and at the same time stabilize the BIGMOM pirates. Domination. In the past, Perospero, the chief minister, could directly advise Charlotte Linlin on the spot. However, since he misjudged North Blue's decision, his internal prestige has plummeted, and his voice has lost its weight. Perospero muttered, "It doesn't make sense, why doesn't Kizaru run away? He can't be someone who will fight for the world government. What's so strange about being surrounded by my mother? Yeah, it's impossible for him to escape under the attack of his mother's thundercloud Zeus and son Prometheus." Smoothie and Katakori looked at their elder brother with disdain. Perospero glanced at Charlotte Linlin secretly at this time, but saw that she was indifferent. He felt helpless and could only sigh. It seems that his mother thinks so too. Just when Smoothie, Katakori and the others were about to sneer at Perospero, they saw that Kizaru's body erupted with golden light. The golden light was dazzling and dazzling, instantly causing everyone to be temporarily blinded. Naive. Charlotte Linlin also closed her eyes at this time. She thought Kizaru wanted to fight desperately, trying to escape. "It's really you." Kizaru's voice resounded in his ears again. I saw Kizaru raised his hands above his head at this time, and what he was holding in his hands was the Super Sky Kong Cloud Sword that he had accumulated for a long time with all his strength. Chapter 995 The Most Special and Mysterious Devil Fruit. The blade fell heavily with lightning speed. Just like chaos opened up the rays of light, in an instant, the dark clouds gathered in the sky were split. Wan Lai was silent. Victory or defeat? No one responded. Kizaru hovered high in the sky, constantly choking rough air. This was his most serious blow, and it was also a blow with all his strength. He didn't want to confirm the result of this blow, because his physical strength was severely depleted now, and all he had to do now was to evacuate from here. Kizaru slipped away and ran away without the slightest hesitation. Charlotte Linlin was lying on the wreckage of the ship at this time, her shoulder was cut with a huge gap. Kizaru's sword nearly split her in two. Damn Kizaru! Charlotte Linlin was worthy of the name of a monster, and she stood up against the pain. Mom, are you alright? Smoothie hurried over to check Charlotte Linlin's injury. In fact, he was also affected by the sword. At this time, he had a large hole in his left abdomen, and the wound was bleeding continuously. Shut up, Charlotte Linlin almost yelled. Smoothie was startled, and quickly closed her mouth, not daring to make a sound. And Katakori's condition is relatively better. He was only injured right leg, simply did not hurt the aorta. Even the most elite 3 generals of the BIGMOM pirates have been hit hard, and the situation of others can be imagined. Perospero's brain and mouth are powerful, but his strength is average, so under the impact just now, his internal organs were damaged, and he was already in a coma. Charlotte Linlin looked around, although she was furious, but she knew there was no way to pursue her. Go back. Yes, Smoothie responded, stiffening. With Shank's ship destroyed, Charlotte Linlin was badly injured by Kizaru, and without Shank's and Charlotte Linlin's cooperation, Buggy didn't pursue her. The chase is over. Next morning, Kizaru joined the Gorosei, 5 elders and others, and his body was severely injured, with obvious signs of lightning strikes and burns on the surface of his skin. What's wrong with you? Sora hurriedly supported Kizaru. Knowing that Andre's turf had been taken out, Kizaru was relieved, when he replied in a weak tone, it's a close call. Well, you lie down first. Sora immediately called the doctor. When doctors and medics came, they examined Kizaru. Although the doctor didn't say it clearly, from his expression, Sora could tell how serious Kizaru's injury was. Damn pirates! Sora clenched his fists. At present, Marine's main combat power was seriously injured, and there was a vacuum period in his strength. At this time, the bald old man with glasses came out. He first glanced at Kizaru who was being rescued, and then said to the air, you immediately form a crusade and go to North Blue. Sora's body froze visibly. Now. Judge must not stay. I understand. Sora turned his head and looked at Kizaru, who was being treated, with an indescribable helplessness in his heart. See Circle Calendar, in November 1522, with 5 people, Kuzan, Ryokugyu, Fujitora and Momoshige, leading the Marine headquarters with 12 Vice Admiral and 26 Rear Admiral, the Army and Marine formed a mixed fleet with a strength of more than 200,000 troops. The mighty drive to North Blue. The North Blue War begins. It is not only the world government that covets North Blue. Although several branches of Fulvyawu's SOG organization have been eliminated, the main force is still there. Under the order of Fulvyaw, Ayadala led the SOG fleet to North Blue, waiting for the opportunity to capture North Blue. Although Charlotte Linlin was hit hard by Kizaru, her ambitions will not stop. With Cracker, Smoothie, and Katakori as the main force, a large number of cadres were dispatched at the same time, and 20,000 pirates were mobilized from the site to wait for the expedition. Andre opened the war perfectly, pushing all forces into the quagmire of war. Holy Land, Mariajoy. The power struggle between the families within Tenryubito has finally come to an end. A new parliament is formed and the chairman of the parliament is born. Tenryubito, who was elected president of the parliament, is very young, only 37 years old. Even the Gorosei, 5 elders expressed doubts, is Tenryubito already withered in talent? Should young people come out to lead the charge? Although 37 years old is about to enter middle age for ordinary people, for politicians, this age is still too young, not stable, and not wise enough. And the Gorosei 5 elders don't know anything about the new chairman, or even a raw face. But in any case, the world government, as Tenryubito's tool to control the world, should still be in awe of Tenryubito's new leader. Fortunately, the Council of Tenryubito also began to promote the new leader, giving the Gorosei 5 elders a certain understanding of the young leader. Peak at 26. Before the age of 33, he had traveled all over the world, learned a lot, and defeated countless masters at the same time. Holy Caligula, the pride of the Tayagutila family, who was entrusted by the Tenryubito families with the hope of ZTE, although he did not have the legendary experience of 3-year-old literacy, 4-year-old martial arts, and 5-year-old Shang's mouth breaking big stones, his peak combat power has already made him shine. After all, the Holy Land of Mariajoy has suffered catastrophe one after another, and a terrifying powerhouse that can shock the world must be launched, so that the world can once again fear Tenryubito. In a year's time I will hang all the rebellious heads on the pier in the Holy Land. In his inaugural address, there was only one sentence that made the Gorosei 5 elders feel unreliable as soon as the new Tenryubito leader spoke. After all, Andre has a track record of defeating or beheading several Tenryubito leaders. Give Fold Yawu a gauntlet for me. After 3 months, I will go to him to fight first. I want him to know who is the real genius in Tenryubito. Saint Caligula is young, his tone is not small, his mouth is closed, he looks like he is the only one in the sky and the earth. Just when the Gorosei 5 elders wondered why a freak like Caligula could be elected president of the council, what Tenryubito then came up with made them wonder. I saw a pure black devil fruit in a brocade box inlaid with gems and wrapped with gold edges, and the texture of this devil fruit was also very strange. It turned out to be it. Gorosei 5 elders widened their eyes, followed by excitement, because this was the secret weapon they were going to suggest Tenryubito to take out, the most special devil fruit among devil fruits, which was created 800 years ago. Tenryubito steals the treasure of world supremacy. At this time, watching Saint Caligula swallow it in one bite, the old guys suddenly realized why he should be elected as the chairman of the council. Chapter 996 Let Yawu be afraid. Caligula Saint's propaganda is overwhelming, the newspapers are like snowflakes. Not only that, but the unprecedented press conference was held in Sabayati Archipelago, which was crowded and alarmed the world. So that within a few days, the name of Saint Caligula spread to all corners of the world. Andre was in the city, and he received Khalifa's report immediately. However, the intelligence collected by the assassination unit this time is limited, it is just that Caligula is very strong. Although it has a peak combat power to the public, there is no record enough to prove its strength. Of course, if I had to give an example, it was confirmed that Saint Caligula defeated Kushiro 5 years ago. Andre threw the information of Saint Caligula to Carlos and others, and then chuckled, to actually threaten to cut off all the rebellious heads within a year. This guy's tone is really unusual. Carlos took over the information, and in the record of Saint Caligula in the information, he saw an amazing news. Carlos challenged in South Blue many years ago was killed by Caligula 4 years ago. Boss, I want to go and fight with him. Carlos clenched his fists. Gunslinger was a goal he wanted to cross in the past, but as his mentality and strength grew, his vision became more taller. However, the fact that the gun god was killed was very touching to him, so he wanted to personally prove the strength of Saint Caligula. Oh, Andre turned to look at Carlos, and after a moment of silence, he said, "If you want to go, then go." "Thank you, boss." Carlos thanked him and turned to leave the hall. Carlos left. Andre shouted, "Knock." "Boss." Knock trotted in from outside the hall. Andre said, "You go with Carlos, and if you can't beat him, bring him back." Yes. Although Knock was puzzled, he still accepted the order. Is Caligula holy? Tenryubito pushed you out in such a high profile, could it be a trap? Andre squinted. He and Tenryubito have been dealing with it for a day or two. Now the North Blue War is deadlocked, West Blue is completely out of the control of the world government, South Blue is a mess, and the only thing left is East Blue. Even the Great Route the first half was also disturbed by the Revolutionary Army, so Tenryubito should focus on rectification at this time, rather than rushing to declare war. But Tenryubito is just the opposite. Judging from their current high-profile propaganda, it seems that they have no plans to rectify, but want to launch a bigger offensive in a short period of time. Of course, this is not impossible, but it is the most correct way to recharge and accumulate strength, and the use of military force will only drag down Tenryubito's old bottom. Andre believed that Tenryubito wasn't a fool, but since he wasn't, why would a warlike lunatic come to power? Thinking for a long time, Andre said in a deep voice, "Domino, let Monet and Khalifa send some more people to keep an eye on Mariajoy's. From today onwards, I want to know everything about Mariajoy's movements as much as possible." "Yes," Domino responded, and immediately took out the phone bug. ... Caligula, how did this kid get elected? Confused by Tenryubito were not only Andre, Foldyawu was also confused by the second monk. For Caligula, Foldyawu has a certain understanding. This guy has been obsessed with martial arts since he was a child. He even disguised himself and slipped out of Mariajoy to find someone to duel, and their family has always been a typical martial artist in Mariajoy families. Do faction. With his own personality and the influence of his family, such a person is at best a general, or a senior thug, and it is impossible for him to be a leader at all. The servant behind Foldyawu asked, "Master, about the matter he invited you to fight." "Dueling with an idiot who only knows how to fight will only make me feel like a fool," Foldyawu said disapprovingly. In fact, for Caligula's invitation to fight, he simply don't take it to heart. Just like a smart person can't quarrel with a brainless person, because he will pull your IQ to the same level as him, and then beat you with rich experience. But the duel he proposed is a descendant of the creator. The talking servant was wearing a neat tuxedo. Unlike the other servants, he was an old servant from the Fold family. Since Ernst's holy death, he left Mariajoy to serve Foldyawu. Witnessed many duels in Mariajoy, and when one side starts a duel in the name of descendants of the creator, the challenged side must fight. Of course, if he does not fight, he will be regarded as a coward, and he will no longer be able to claim to be a descendant of the creator. HMPH, the descendant of the creator. Does he think this identity is very glorious? Foldyawu has never put a series of superior titles such as World Nobles and Descendants of the Creator in his eyes, because he knows the history of Tenryubito, and he knows Tenryubito. What a dirty means to steal world supremacy, not to mention that he has now been deprived of the title of noble by Tenryubito, and has been removed from his own family. The old servant choked for a moment. He wanted to persuade, but he couldn't organize a persuasive language. Could it be? At this moment, Foldyawu suddenly thought of something. Seeing Foldyawu suddenly widen his eyes, his face turned pale, and a little cold sweat began to break out on his forehead. The old servant hurriedly asked, "Master, what's the matter with you? Could it be that they let him eat that devil fruit?" Foldyawu clenched his fists, his fingers were white due to the clenched joints, and his body trembled unnaturally. "Master, what devil fruit are you referring to? Could it threaten you?" The old servant became more and more confused. In his opinion, no matter how powerful the devil fruit is, it depends on who is using it, and the young master Foldyawu is very talented, and his strength has reached the peak, so he doesn't need to care about it at all. "Impossible, how is it possible? I must scare myself, unless all families agree, otherwise." Foldyawu muttered to himself, then took a deep breath to calm down his emotions, but he was still worried, and said to the old servant, "Help me prepare, I want to go back to Mariajoy once." Go back. The old servant widened his eyes. Chapter 997 Ruthless Coercion. The new official took office as 3 fires, and Saint Caligula interprets this sentence to the extreme. A descendant of the Tyagudila family, Caligula has no interest in things like money and politics. So as soon as he came to power, he went to the family's shipyard. The shipbuilders in this shipyard are all the most outstanding shipbuilders in the world, and each of them has been coerced by the Tyagudila family to build ships for Tenryubito. The director of the shipyard carefully introduced the giant warship in front of him. Santa Caligula, this is the creator, which was built 3 years ago. Now that the hull has been completed, it is expected to be ready for sea trials in 3 months. 3 months later, will it take that long? Saint Caligula frowned in dissatisfaction. Our workers are already working hard to build it, but this ship is equipped with a fortress gun according to your original plan, and... The factory manager tried his best to explain, but before he could finish speaking, Saint Caligula grabbed his forehead with one hand. This is not an excuse for your incompetence and being lazy with this group of pariahs. A click. Without giving the factory manager a chance to defend himself, Saint Caligula pinched his head. Saint Caligula threw the corpse, and immediately a servant came up and dragged the corpse away. At the same time, the maids immediately brought clean water and cloth, and shaved Saint Caligula to wash off the blood stains and brains mixture on their hands. This scene fell into the eyes of the boatmen, all of them trembling with fright, panic in their hearts. Saint Caligula asked the maid to deal with the blood stains and brains on her hands. Who is the acting factory manager here? Saint Caligula, it's me, I'm the acting director. Mid-parted head hurriedly knelt to the ground, but because of fear, his crotch was already shivering, and a smell of now made Saint Caligula frown. Trash! Saint Caligula waved his hand, and the guard beside him immediately drew his knife and chopped off the factory manager on the spot. Saint Caligula was very dissatisfied and said disdainfully, "No wonder that pirate who always loses to Andre is a group of pariahs who are greedy for life and fear of death." The boatmen buried their heads deeply on the ground, not daring to face Saint Caligula's gaze. 2 months, 2 months, I want this ship to be capable of actual combat. If you can't do this, then you and your family will all be damned. Saint Caligula raised his hand, raised 2 fingers, and his stern orders had no room for change. Leaving the shipyard, Caligula Street is non-stop, preparing to go to the Marine Science Unit, where he is going to find Vegapunk. The way, Caligula asked Sengoku, how is the progress of the restart of the giant soldier project? Although Sengoku did not enter the shipyard, he just saw 2 bodies being dragged out for burial. He had a general understanding of the Caligula saint, so he cautiously replied, "In progress, Vegapunk the doctor has done his best." Quote. Go all out. I don't like this sentence. Caligula sage shook his head, then played with a famous sword in his hand. Sengoku, I have heard of you, but I have a question, can you answer me? Huh, Sengoku was stunned. I don't understand why a person who has been defeated in a row can still live and stay in the position of commander-in-chief of the entire army. Shouldn't you kill yourself to clear your shame? The words of Saint Caligula can already be said to be aggressive. But Sengoku didn't explain, just replied indifferently, "If you want to dismiss me, then I have nothing to say." Saint Caligula squinted, his cold eyes fell on Sengoku's face, and after about a minute, he smiled. Interesting, you are indeed different from those idiots I have seen before. You are not afraid of me, this I'm happy with 1 point, but you're so rude to me. Sengoku was stunned for a moment, then said subconsciously, rude. However, Saint Caligula's answer was an icy sword, and the sword rested on Sengoku's neck. Kneel down, I don't like others speaking in front of me. The icy blade had been embedded in Sengoku's neck, and the skin had already been cut open, and blood had spilled out. No question, Saint Caligula would cut Sengoku's neck at any moment. Saint Caligula's hand increased strength again. Kneel down. At this time, Saint Caligula had already released the killing intent. Sengoku stared at Saint Caligula. Not only did he not kneel, he didn't even say a word to beg for mercy, he just stared straight at him. Ahahaha. Saint Caligula suddenly put away the knife, then turned the knife and handed the hilt to Sengoku. This is a soldier. Neither humble nor arrogant, much stronger than those pariahs. I will reward you. The sudden change in attitude made it difficult for Sengoku to adapt. At this time, he had a feeling of being mentally ill, and he couldn't figure out what the person in front of him would do. Accept my reward, you deserve it, but if you dare to be powerless to me in the future, then I will cut off your head without hesitation. Saint Caligula threw the knife away and stopped paying attention to Sengoku. Sengoku pondered for a while, then silently picked up the knife on the ground. Now, let's continue the topic we just talked about. Saint Caligula was half lying on the chair, but her strong legs were on the table, without the grace that a noble should have. She looked like a bandit leader, but combined with his temperamental personality and his disposition to regard human life as a must-have, it is more appropriate to describe him as a tyrant. Caligula Saint asked, "Tell me how long it will take to train an army of 500,000 people, give me the exact time. There are too few graduates from the military academy now, and officers at the bottom are scarce. I don't want explanations or reasons. Half a year, I only give you half a year." Sengoku's face changed suddenly, because this task could not be completed at all. You must know that the prestige of the world government is extremely low, coupled with the continuous wars in troubled times, the lack of young people, and the excessive taxation has caused public resentment and want to force conscription. The difficulty is too great, and the consequences of forced conscription will only exacerbate the rebellion. Can't you do it? If it can't be done within half a year, then Marine, the generals and family members of the army vice admiral and above will all be guillotined. Saint Caligula's order is not unreasonable and difficult for a strong man, it is simply push people to the limit. Chapter 998 This guy is strong. Carlos was lying in the grass on a hill. This hill was near the scientific unit. According to the information provided by the assassination unit, Saint Caligula would be here today, so Carlos chose a place where the good sniping point. Bullet has been replaced with a Seastone warhead, and this time the warhead is very special. It is a precision polished pointed bullet. This kind of bullet is very difficult to manufacture. The workers of the Ratchet genus can only produce 5 pieces a month. The annual output is only 60 pieces. In order to snipe Caligula, Carlos brought out all the bullets for a year this time. Time passed by, mosquitoes were biting Carlos, and there were even lizards and snakes crawling over him, but he still didn't move and was almost integrated with the environment. At this time, the battleship aboard Caligula's sanctuary finally arrived. Carlos breathed steadily, but his eyes narrowed slowly, and his fingers had already pulled the trigger. Southwesterly wind, weak. Target distance, about 770 meters. Judging by the wind and distance, Carlos' breathing gradually stopped, like a stone sculpture surrounded by weeds. Caligula-san and Sengoku and others disembarked one after another. At this time, under the protection of guards and a large number of Marines, Saint Caligula was simply unable to accurately aim. Nock, who was observing with binoculars in the sky, was secretly impatient. In fact, in his opinion, this sniping was completely useless. Although Carlos' sniping skills were very high, Caligula was the chairman of Tenryubido's Trust Council. There are so many bodyguards around, wanting to shoot Saint Caligula accurately among so many bodyguards is simply a fantasy. And the facts also proved what Nock thought. Under the protection of the overlapping human walls, there was almost no trace of Saint Caligula. At this time, Nock wanted to remind Carlos to give up this sniper plan and evacuate this dangerous place immediately. But when Nock looked at Carlos, he found that he seemed to be missing. Taking a closer look, Nock discovered that a rock python climbed up Carlos' back at this time, but the rock python did not attack Carlos. How is that possible? Nock couldn't believe his eyes if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. 500 meters, 400 meters, 350 meters. At this time, Carlos silently estimated the distance in his heart, but the muzzle in his hand did not move. Saint Caligula suddenly stopped at this moment. He seemed to have discovered the danger, and he also looked at the hill where Carlos was hiding. At this time, the grass on the hilltop swayed. There are assassins. Saint Caligula's family guards are very conscientious and vigilant. At this time, some of them took up guns and shot at the grass where Carlos was hiding. Whoosh whoosh. The bullet hit the rock python, which immediately angered the rock python, causing it to jump up with its bloody mouth open. The body of this rock python is more than 10 meters long, and the snake body is the thickness of a bucket. It turned out to be a snake. Saint Caligula snorted disdainfully, then grabbed the knife in the guard's hand, and slashed out, splitting the rock python into 2 pieces. The snake's head fell, and the blood of the snake sprayed, splattered Carlos' face, and confused his eyes. However, Carlos still had no plans to adjust his posture, not even moving his gun. Is Carlos going to give up? Nock was secretly relieved. However, just when Nock thought he could go back safely, Carlos suddenly pulled the trigger, and with a flick of his left hand, moved the muzzle more than 30 degrees to the right, and then shot without hesitation. Boom! The sudden sound of gunfire startled beasts and birds, and insects and frogs jumped around the grass. Whoosh _. The bullet passed through the heads of the 3 guards and shot directly at Caligula Saint. It all happened so suddenly, including Nock, who had been watching it all. He didn't know how Carlos judged the timing of the shot, because the position of the gun had not been adjusted at all before he shot, so there was no aiming advance amount. 4 blood mists floated up. A large number of guards drew their knives and guns, and Marine soldiers shot directly at Carlos's position. Did it work? Nock almost exclaimed. At this time, the guards and soldiers in front of Saint Caligula all flew up, and Saint Caligula shouted with a grinning face, "Come out, the one who can hurt me, you are the first." Is he still dodged? This is the speed of the Peak's reaction. It seems that he can defeat the gun god. Carlos had already seen the wound on Saint Caligula's face at this time. It was a bullet scar. The bullet had just bitten off a large piece of meat, but unfortunately it didn't penetrate into the brain. How dare you ignore me? Caligula swung the knife casually and slashed a 100-meter-long slash on the spot. Carlos jumped back, raised his sniper rifle in the air at the same time, and aimed at Caligula Saint's eyebrows. Boom! Another shot. However, Saint Caligula just raised the knife and blocked the bullet. Seastone bullets, or bullets polished into this shape. It seems that the pirates of your Zero Squad are really incredible. Because of the moment when Carlos Teng jumped behind him, Saint Caligula could see his face clearly. Carlos didn't answer Caligula Saint. What he had to do now was to withdraw, and at the same time fired a few more bullets to hinder the enemy's pursuit. It's just Caligula's holy peak level strength, and the speed of response is desperate. Carlos has been unable to predict the position of Caligula Saint, and can only shoot with his feeling. This guy is strong. Carlos spoke highly of Caligula Saint, and he even thought that the strength of this guy would be no worse than that of Fulviao. Shish, _. At this time, Saint Caligula disappeared. His afterimages were left on the grass in the woods, on tree trunks, and on rocks. At this time, Saint Caligula had already blocked in front of Carlos, and said with a playful expression, "The game of cat and mouse is sometimes interesting, what do you think?" At this time, Carlos had drawn his guns with both hands, and shot Caligula Saint without hesitation. Bang bang bang. The bullets were densely packed and shot at a very high speed, coupled with the amazing reload speed of Carlos, which formed a terrifying barrage. It's just that Saint Caligula kept waving the knife in his hand and smashed Carlos' bullets to the ground. A few minutes passed, and the ground was covered with warheads. After careful calculation, there were nearly 1,000 bullets. Caca _. The sound of 2 bolts hitting the air sounded, proving that Carlos's 2 guns were out of bullets. Saint Caligula shook the knife in his hand and said sarcastically, "There are no more bullets, and there are so many people around you, where are you going to escape?" Sengoku and others had already surrounded Carlos with thousands of people. Chapter 999 empty-handed into the blade. Sengoku pointed at Carlos and said in a warning tone, "Carlos, Stop struggling, you are already surrounded by us, put down your weapons and surrender immediately. Surrender. Sengoku, you have become so humorous now. Carlos was amused by Sengoku's words. At this time, he quickly pulled out the 2 daggers from his waist and stood in front of Shang, posing as a melee combat weapon. Preparation. Who comes first? A boring fight with beasts. Saint Caligula didn't do it himself. Perhaps in his opinion, this game has lost its fun. Kill him. With the order of Saint Caligula, a large number of soldiers rushed up and rushed towards Carlos. Humph! Carlos groaned, and then with a series of high whip legs, the soldier who rushed to the strongest side shot the head, and then a round-robin kick of Thomas in place, kicked all the people who came up to the ground. Carlos' fighting technique is very skilled and strong, so any soldier who is kicked is either dead or fractured. In the blink of an eye, a piece fell to the ground. Interesting guy, how can he resist so tenaciously? Caligula thought that Carlos would lose his combat effectiveness when he emptied his bullets, but now Carlos' performance has revived his interest in playing with his prey. Black Panther, go and play with him. Yes, master. A black-clothed guard next to Saint Caligula stood up. This guard is about 179. In the op world where there are many high-level people, he can only be regarded as a dwarf, and in front of Carlos, his height is also nearly 1 meter different. At this time, the Black Panther's hands drooped naturally, and with a flick of his wrist, 2 daggers glowing with blue and emerald green light slipped from his sleeves and appeared in his hands. Emerald green dagger is called Sleeping God's Sleep, and there is a faint blue dagger called the Death of the God of Death. These 2 daggers have been forged for thousands of times, and the iron is cut like mud, and the daggers are quenched with poison. Injured by them, the toxins will soon flow into the heart, killing them on the spot. Who was killing? Noticed that someone was approaching quickly behind him. What a strong killing intent. Carlos turned around subconsciously, and the dagger in his hand faced the approaching weapon. Kang! The 4 daggers parried together, and both Carlos and Black Panther exerted their strength at the same time. A lot of strength. Carlos frowned. At this time, the forefoot of his right foot was crushed on the ground, and his body leaned forward. With his skills and his own strength, he suddenly exerted force and slammed into the Black Panther's shang with his shoulder. However, the Black Panther predicted Carlos's movements, and he took a step with his left foot. At the moment when his body moved, the blue dagger in his hand also slashed towards Carlos's shang chamber at the same time. A thrilling scene, the slightest slow response will kill Wonquan. Sengoku's face was ashen. He didn't expect Caligula to have such a master, who could compete with Carlos, the head of Team Zero, the white god of death. At this time, Carlos' shoulders were leaning forward, and the center of gravity of his body could not be adjusted for a while, which meant that he could not move in the air, but he did not wait for death, but raised his right arm and handed out the dagger at the same time. Ding! The 2 daggers collided between the lightning and flint, spattering sporadic sparks. Isn't it? How can you fight with Carlos to such an extent? The bad premonition made Nox's forehead slip into cold sweat. He wanted to understand Carlos' strength. Even Harold, who had been messing around all day, would not easily make jokes about Carlos. Ding ding ding, dang dang. The 2 are very skilled in the use of daggers. The left dagger blocks and defends, and the right dagger is responsible for offense. The high-frequency daggers fought each other in melee combat, relying on the short height, but the more flexible Black Panther seemed to have an advantage. Finally, a blood burst out, and Carlos's arm was slashed by an emerald green dagger. Almost the moment he was cut open by the dagger, Carlos began to clearly feel a sense of powerlessness. This venom contains neurotoxicity, which can paralyze the cells of the human body. Without the slightest hesitation, Carlos put his foot in the Black Panther's Zion hole, and quickly opened the distance with the rebound force from his feet. At the same time, his dagger neatly cut off a piece of flesh on his left arm. It's neat and terrific. It's worthy of being the chief of Andre's command. He's so powerful without bullets. Caligula squinted, and Carlos' decisiveness made his eyes bright, because he knew very well that once he was caught in the scene of the sleeping god, if you are injured, if you do not deal with it immediately, the toxin will destroy the cells and nerve tissue of the human body in just a few tens of seconds. At this time, Carlos had to re-examine his opponent. This unassuming, small man is a formidable enemy. The Black Panther was also looking at Carlos at the same time, as if looking for his flaws. However, a terrifying scene happened, and Carlos suddenly recovered the dagger and put it back into the leather sheath on his leg. Black Panther was stunned, finally opened his mouth, and asked suspiciously, "Do you want to surrender?" Carlos twisted his neck and stretched the joints and muscles of his body at the same time. The boss is right, if you encounter an opponent with the same strength as you, you can't use your weak points to challenge it. What do you mean? Black Panther didn't understand. He had just watched the battle between Carlos and Caligula, and the marksmanship Carlos showed was indeed terrifying. Fortunately, he has no bullets now, which means that his strength has dropped by half. Carlos did not answer, but told Black Panther with practical actions. At this time, Carlos hooked his finger to the Black Panther, meaning to let him come over, and he was still empty-handed and wanted to continue fighting. Did he come to die? Black Panther didn't know Carlos' intention, so he waved the dagger directly to meet Carlos, and when the distance between the two of them was nearly 2 meters, he suddenly jumped up. The two daggers drew 2 rays of light, one blue and one green, in the air. Holding the dagger in his left hand, he stabbed at Carlos's heart, while the right hand held the dagger backwards and cut into Carlos' throat. They are all deadly moves. However, at this moment, Carlos did not have the slightest fear on his face, but was surprisingly calm, and the sharpshooter was not surprised. Empty-handed into a razor sharp. At this time, Carlos's hands accurately grabbed the Black Panther's wrist, and under the stunned eyes of the Black Panther, at the moment when he suddenly exerted force, his right knee had been raised and hit the Black Panther's head fiercely. The sniper's instinctive prejudgment and precise grasp, coupled with the height difference between the two, caused Carlos to hit the Black Panther's head with a knee collision this time. Crack! The sound of bone cracks sounded, the skull burst, and the brains and blood shot out, like a watermelon that burst in an instant. Black Panther was killed instantly. Chapter 1000 Bottom of the box weapons. Snapped, snapped, snapped. The dull applause sounded. There was no anger in Caligula's eyes. Instead, he looked at Carlos in surprise. Zizwe, worthy of being the chief warrior under André's command, this strength is really unexpected. Carlos didn't speak, because killing a Black Panther didn't count as solving the battle. But I have a question, can you kill everyone here and escape? Saint Caligula's words made the body of the sea soldiers tremble. They did not expect that Saint Caligula would be so cold-blooded and show no mercy to their own people. You can try. Carlos pulled out the dagger on his leg at this time. After all, killing people with a sharp blade is more efficient and less labor-intensive. Ahahaha. After Caligula Sheng laughed strangely, he raised his hand. Kill him. With the order of Saint Caligula, even if the sea soldiers were reluctant, they could only bite the bullet and kill Carlos. At this time, Sengoku's face was ashen. Although this kind of crowd tactics can have a good consumption effect, when his own combat power is significantly higher than the enemy's, there is no need to make such unnecessary sacrifices. However, Saint Caligula didn't take human life seriously at all, he was just playing games with the lives of ordinary people. Sengoku couldn't bear the heavy sacrifice of the Marines, so he didn't ask Caligula Saint, he shot himself, wanting to end the battle as quickly as possible. Can't wait any longer. Watching the battle at a high altitude, saw that Sengoku had taken action and knew that the situation was not good, so he immediately took out the new nerve gas made by Caesar from the package. The power of this poisonous gas is very strong. André has also tested it himself. Even if he inhales this poisonous gas, he will experience side effects such as dizziness and weakness in the limbs. Fortunately, Carlos, the antidote for this type of poisonous gas, also carries it with him, so he is not worried that he will be poisoned by it. Go to hell, Chops. Knock threw the gas bomb in his hand directly. The poisonous gas bomb fell from an altitude of 1,000 meters and was soon discovered by Saint Caligula. Huh, what is that? Saint Caligula raised his head suspiciously, and then slashed with disdain. A knife gas pierced the air and directly cut the 4 poison gas bombs that fell. In an instant, the poisonous gas spread rapidly. All the Marines who inhaled the poisonous gas fell to the ground, and Sengoku accidentally inhaled the poisonous gas. At this time, his mouth was on fire, and his brain was a little dizzy. Saint Caligula reacted quickly and did not inhale too much poisonous gas, but as long as a little of this poisonous gas was inhaled, it would cause damage to the nerves. Cough cough. It's poisonous gas, everyone, cover your nose and get out of here. As soon as a military officer finished speaking, he fell to the ground due to inhaling an excessive amount of poison gas. Andre, what a vile you are, using poison gas. Sengoku scolded inwardly, but he was already injured, and now after inhaling the poisonous gas, he was injured even more, and it was difficult to even stand still. Cough cough. Carlos knew that this was the escape opportunity created by Nock, so he covered his nose and walked quickly to the direction of the top of the mountain. Don't try to run. Saint Caligula was a peak anyway. Although the poison gas had a certain effect on him, it was a shame to let Carlos slip away from his eyes, so he immediately chased after him. Shish _ Both Carlos and Caligula were running at full speed, and both of them took their shaving to the extreme. Actually still chasing. Carlos was shocked, and then took out 2 small green melon grenades from his waist. After the grenade landed at the feet of Carlos, a violent explosion occurred, not only causing a strong shock wave, but also the seastone shrapnel was blown up. These seastone shards are extremely difficult products to machine, and because of the special shape required to machine them, they are rarer than pointed seastone bullets. Team Zero tried their best to make only 10, but Carlos brought out 2 this time. Seastone fragments were blasted towards Caligula Street. Saint Caligula didn't check for a while, and was covered up. A fragment was inserted into his right face, and a shrapnel was inserted into his left leg. Seastone is the nemesis of devil fruit power users, so Carlos only suffered some physical injuries. On the other hand, Saint Caligula was miserable. Because of Seastone, he had to stop. Seeing this scene, Nock's hanging heart finally let go. We withdraw. Watching Carlos fly into the sky with the help of Nock. Saint Caligula's eyes widened, and he gritted his teeth with hatred, and then scolded towards the sky. Despicable ants, do you only use such despicable methods? ... Carlos and Nock narrowly escaped. After leaving the Marine Science Unit, they immediately reunited with the response personnel sent by the Assassination Unit and returned to the New World by boat. After returning to the city, Andre listened to Carlos' report in detail, and had a better understanding of Caligula Saint. Arrogant, self-righteous, regards human life as a must. These are Carlos' comments on Caligula Saint. It seems that the new leader chosen by Tenryubito has a lot of problems. Harold smiled disdainfully. He thought Caligula was holy. If it was what Carlos described, then there was nothing at all. Worry is necessary. Luyu frowned deeply and said worriedly, Boss, Tenryubito can't possibly choose an idiot to come to power. Yeah, if something goes wrong, there must be a demon. Andre tapped the table irritably. If Tenryubito chose a genius to take the stage this time, Andre didn't need to be bothered like this. Enel said tentatively, is he deliberately pretending to confuse Carlos? Impossible. With Tenryubito's arrogance, it is impossible for them to show weakness to us. For the first time, Comrade Crocodile denied other people's ideas in a formal internal team meeting. I don't think it's either. It's not like he's pretending. He's not a monkey. Mahak and Shiryu of Rain were also silent at this time. Although they both agreed with Carlos and Luyu's views, they couldn't say why, because Saint Caligula's performance simply subverted the leaders of Tenryubito. Feature. Andre thought for a long time, then said to Violet, let Khalifa contact the monkey and ask him what the intention of this Caligula is. Understood. Violet was about to get the phone bug. At this time, there was a loud noise outside the hall. Andre, Sengoku has something to tell you. This loud voice is undoubtedly Garp. Sengoku. Andre raised his eyebrows, his eyes filled with confusion.